Schwalm.
Watched the video.
Yeah,
because
because I was looking at
like, well, still give me what I needed. So.
No, it
I
wasn't.
just looked at my other
It
assignment,
wasn't you guys.
and I didn't realize I missed the page. That's the.
Oh, it's what you went back.
The second page is what I missed, and I
I
didn't
bet
know it
you
was the
guys
second
got
page.
it all.
When I did the assignment for the writing, I did all
Yeah.
the writing assignments and didn't write. I didn't know that you were supposed to footnote those because I didn't get to see the second page of the assignment. Because all I could see on my phone was the first page.
Okay.
That's okay, because I'm so far behind, I can't pay attention.
And so it was on the second page. You had a little paragraph at the bottom. It says two spaces. I found it. And I'm like, that's why I didn't see that.
Cool. Well, we'll give you a little bit more information.
No, that's,
We're
no,
building,
I
we're
had
building
points.
a mental bank
I
here.
just didn't have it, but we should have, yeah. I don't think we talked about it.
I'm just trying to catch up.
So the recording was a different class, and as I look back at it, I was thinking, Lee Schwalm, will I have to re-record the class? But then I wouldn't. How do you recapture all the conversation we had?
Don't need you, sir.
Yes, really. Oh, shoot. So you're gonna hear everything, Lee Schwalm, tonight. And I'm looking back just to make sure it really is recorded. Yes, it is recorded. Tonight we're going to cover really writing. When you think of the crafting task we're going to do, but we're definitely going to talk about the assignment here. I've not gone about. I went through every other assignment, but the leading body paragraphs. Maybe we should start with that one this afternoon. But that's the way the order of looking at them. But I want to talk through some, and I'm going to use your leading body paragraphs just to show it on the screen, if you don't mind. I'm not scribble on anything, just to ask questions and tell you what we should be thinking of as we're writing this syllabus. It's not the research paper, but it's building it up toward that is what you're doing. So we're talking about writing, talk about assignments, and then what we're going to do next week, making presentations. And I don't think we're going to go to the whole evening tonight like we did last week. It's just what it takes for us to cover what we're doing. Anything for prayer or things to praise the Lord for? Or
Prayer for Janet and her child, 5 years old. She came up to me today, and she's being foreclosed on her house and stuff. We prayed, but definitely want to keep her in prayer.
Is she a believer or unbeliever? Don't know.
I did not have enough conversation to really get that. So she just needs prayer, and she did pray, and she was very thankful. Mm-hmm. So.
Were you out ringing bells, or
I was ringing bells?
With the Salvation Army, or
yeah. And
cool.
she came up and just gave me a big hug, and she recognized me from another ministry I did. I never met her before, but it's kind of nice having a nice woman just come on up and just give you a big hug in the middle of the day. It's like that's nice. Yeah. So I'll pray for her.
You express the love of Christ to her.
Amen.
She felt it again. Anybody else? Anything going on? Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I was down in Dallas at the pre-trib. If you want to go to a neat place about end-time events, the pre-trib study group. I think it's what it's called online. Pre-trib. Pardon?
With Gramacki, did you go with?
Yeah, Gary was there. Yeah, Dr. Gramacki was there. He set up our table, and he always does that, which is good. He took his Torah last year to the conference, but it was neat. You ever heard of Randall Price? He's was at Liberty University for many years. He's a research archaeologist. In fact, he was just on a team last year, the year before, where they found some more scrolls in Qumran. In fact, he was asking about it. Somebody was asking about the tunnels in Gaza. What's it? And he was asking they had a panel discussion with, you ever heard of Arnold Fruchtenbaum?
Yeah.
A little short Jewish guy. He was one of them, and another gentleman from Friends of Israel, I think the organization, and then a gentleman from Not by Works, but he's written a bunch of prophetic books. And so they were a panel discussion. They asked Dr. Price, said, what's it like to dig in sand? Are they going to hit rock down there? Is that what they're running into? Like up northern Israel, it's all rock up there. And he says, no, it's probably all sand. And what we did out in Qumran, he used that as an example, they're at the north end of the Dead Sea. You go down and it feels like you're hitting something, and then it goes down again, and it feels like you got an open place, and it's just sand. Whereas what they're dealing with, the question was, if Israel pumps seawater into their tunnels, will it just sort of go away because sand will just leach out water? I said, well, it depends on what's down there. sand will do that, but evidently these are pretty, I've never seen a picture. You see the pictures online of what they are, but it looks like they still have cracks in them. They're all cement or something. So anyway, that was rather interesting. A number of people talking about end time events, and we had that panel discussion at the end. So what's going on in Israel prophetically now? Well, we are saying this is possible, and Tommy Ice, if you've ever heard Tommy Ice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm quoting one of his papers.
He's a good, pardon?
He's got one of the papers I've got.
Oh, cool. He's really good guy. He's got such a dry sense of humor. So anyway, it's good to hear him talking through other things. And I'm sitting across the table. We had a banquet on Monday night, always every dinner. I'm sitting there and go, the gentleman across the table said, boy, you look so familiar. And I look at his name tag. I'm trying not to be, everybody had a name tag on. Look at somebody's chest there and try to get his name. Boy, you look like, you ever heard the name H. Wayne House? He's written, he's one of our adjunct faculty in the doctoral program. I ran into his books when I got out of seminary. We were right about the same time. He's a little older than me. But I'm looking at this guy, boy, you look just like him. But it said Herschel, and I couldn't see the last name. All I see is Herschel. I didn't know. H. Wayne House. I didn't even put it together. So after we finished eating, I said, boy, you look like you see, I've seen him in our faculty meetings here online, but I've never met him in person. I said, boy, you look a lot like a guy that we have as an adjunct faculty. And could you be? Well, yeah, but my mom called me Herschel. So I hope I didn't embarrass myself too much. Yeah. So listen to things. Anything else? Well, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Let me pray for us. Father, thank you for the evening. We thank you for each of the guys here and for Li Shuang as we're just trying to do our best at communicating your truth, and that comes through writing and talking with others too. So Lord, help us toward that end as we finish up this class. Father, for Janet that James ran into, you know her life and her need, and we all know that she needs you as her Lord and Savior, and to trust you. And Lord, would you be so gracious to meet her at a point of her physical need, to show her that you're a God of love, and then she would fall before you and find her spiritual need met too. And most of all, that's our prayer. Other things that we think of too in our lives, we just pray that you would give us the wisdom and the grace. And Lord, bless this evening that you'd be honored through it all for Christ's sake. Amen. Let's talk a little bit about the assignments that we've just finished up. You've done a number of language assignments where you're getting introduced to the languages. Hopefully that was encouraging for you. Sean's going, no,
please don't.
no. We all struggle with different things in life, and some of us struggle with languages. So I know that it wasn't for me. I went through college and majored in English because I liked literature. But maybe I've told you before that because I share with a lot of classes. I had one grammar class in college in English grammar. And a little old lady, she sat behind her desk, had a coffee pot. She sort of lived in the room. In fact, she broke her hip. And we all thought she was going to be done. She comes back after a couple of weeks and she's sitting in the classroom there. But if she wanted to tell you, you should flunk this class, she'd give you a C-. I got a C- in her class. I didn't understand. I hated diagramming sentences and all the rest. But I like literature, and so I majored in that aspect of it. Went to seminary, took Greek. That's what that's all about. And all of a sudden, everything in English clicked. Sort of like something got unstuck in my brain. Yeah, so I enjoy language now. Still don't like diagramming sentences, but you got to do it. And I see the value of it. So I hope the language exposure was encouraging for you, not discouraging, mainly because hopefully you were now exposed to the tools. This last assignment where I asked you to do a word study, boy, some of you all were so diligent. You knocked it out of the park. The only criticism that I have is If you're using the tools, let me just try to draw,
I didn't put the footnotes.
get one up here. I use Blue Letter Bible, but there's a lot of apps that you can use that are for free. So go out there and find them. All right, we're going to do, what do we have? An Old Testament, Deuteronomy 6. So you're researching and you want to, I don't know how to read this. It's Greek to me. We look through, and you're in verse 5 and you open it up and different things you can do. You know, I just let it open up where it's at. And then I find the words, look for the Strong's term, and then you open it up, Lord, and it shows you total count in the Old Testament. You find, this is the first place I come, the biblical usage, and then you're going to find Strong's definition and maybe another lexicon, in this case, BDB, Brown Driver Briggs. And you want to open it up. Like, why can't I get it open up? Where's Gesenius? Why can't I get BDB open?
Up there.
Up there,
At the
go up
top.
a little bit, there you go.
Show all.
Show all.
There you go. Yeah.
Ah, cool. You know more than I do. All right, so I'm opening it up. And how would I, and the question I was looking for, and the only issue I would have is, as you're getting this material, don't plagiarize. I mean, cut and paste, yeah, quote. Then if you got a direct quote, do it. But how do you source this? All right, it's a website, a web page, but you got to be careful and this is the minor detail, the number of you didn't put in, you got to put this in there. This is the title of the article. It's the word. Just sourcing Blue Letter Bible, having the correct page, you're going to come right to this page. Technically, though, you start out with, and I don't see there's any person's name associated with this. Maybe, you know, BDB would have something. Pardon?
So because the word, now if I do it in Logos, mine, I actually get it.
It comes up where,
Yeah.
if they present it, see how it compares to Turabian. I mean, it should cut and paste in Turabian rather, but make sure it just fits the conventions of the person. But that's the only minor thing. Other than that, you all did well to use these. And that's what I was looking for. Can I use software to do a word study? And so what I would do, I'd come in for a word study, come in and look at the definitions. Then I'd look down at the dictionaries that are there or dictionary, start getting a flavor for it. And as I know a little bit more, and then I'm going to start doing my narrowing down. You're going to start with the broadest context for a term, which would be outside the Bible, extra biblical, and what they would say. And then I'd come into the Bible with everybody using the same term, but all right, it's everyone in the Bible. And then I'd narrow it down to this specific author, and then maybe this book. And all right, that's just typical word study. So you're going to try to narrow it down. In this passage, now in this book, maybe he's got 2 or 3 different nuances, but in this passage here, I think that's exactly what it means. Question, anybody on a word study? Accordance, logos, learn how they, and I'm assuming it's, you got an article, they got the articles down on the side, and I know when you highlight, you can just hit it and it cuts and pastes and
Yeah,
puts in the footnote at the bottom of the page and everything.
sometimes. But mine doesn't look like, I mean, I have to figure out how you got that.
In Logos, you mean? I remember in Logos, and this is again back an older version, you would, with a term, it had a circle and it had the different, and I forget what that was, because that's back in version 3. I don't know what it would do now,
I'm trying to figure
but it would show you the different forms of the word. Now there's where you go a verb form, whether it's a noun or it's a verbal or an adjective form, because now you're working with different forms of the word, as well as different tenses of the verbs, and they all have a different nuance.
like,
Question, comment, go ahead.
oh, no, sir. I'm just trying to figure out how I mean, I've been struggling with this all week. So
It's a software question. Is that what you're asking?
No, it's how far, how in depth. I mean, and unfortunately, never mind. I don't want to waste time. Everybody has time trying to explain it.
Well, the purpose of what I was wanting you to do is use your software to apply your Bible study techniques.
Oh, I know how to, I mean,
And
that's
that's
not, a
where
problem.
you're
That's
going.
not the problem. It's just getting a page or 2 pages out of this, which,
Yeah, and then to source them correctly. All right, that's our
That's-
research methods
that's mine.
purposes. Yeah.
I can copy this.
It'd been good if I would have read page 2. I would have done that for you.
Sorry. What do you mean in the assignment? You didn't see page 2 of it?
No, I like to see the one page.
Cool. All right, let's talk about the leading body paragraphs. Oh, shoot. I put a handout in the module. Let me open that up first.
I copy anything from there, gives me that. Swanson Juniors, blah, blah, blah. The dictionary. No, that's just copy. That's what Logos and Word does.
So I did more last week, and he told me I had too much. He said, you're.
But I don't know if that's, I mean, that's what he wants, but that's what Logos gives you if you copy
that. And he's like, too much.
I still have.
He's like, cut the subtotal.
I just copied.
Too. But,
Yeah,
I don't even
I'm
know what
going
word we were
after,
supposed to be looking
I'm
at.
going, right now discovering the Antichrist through his power and authority.
To
Through modern times, but I'm using Matthew, chapter 12.
Go back to the
Very
Logos.
first side, it's a strong basis for the
Well,
definition
was it
of this
Deuteronomy?
generation. I turned
okay.
out the arguments of
Sure.
generations. So I told him just do it.
Deuteronomy,
There's it.
which
And how
house?
so I prefer the nation first.
Okay.
So go to the next
Person. Collection.
The summit is probably
A couple months ago, but I think he did a couple years or a year ago.
Habeck, yeah.
Yeah, use the code to get in.
All
All right.
On this generation. Just that.
I'm telling you,
Just this generation.
Yeah.
He's a primo guy, but not this.
So
Two-
this is
So
all
he
about-
thinks-
yeah.
Two
That's
crowns,
the
but
big
they're
difference.
Wish I had paper.
Yeah.
I could use
Are you
this.
talking pre-mill stuff?
Yeah.
Kind of, we're talking, somebody who
the-
isn't on this generation, for the argument that I was using on this generation is gonna be part of the piece of it. I'm not gonna go as full an extent. I actually wrote that as one of my presuppositions that I will not go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I was saying that I listened to a guy, there's a.
But the footnote may be wrong.
Yeah.
You have a footnote? You're saying?
Oh, yes,
you got it?
sir. I copied
Yeah,
from,
they had all four positions.
so in Logos, in
Historic.
the balance between Word and Logos,
So you cut and paste it and it'll stick it at the bottom of the page.
I'll read that, so I'll show you. So I'll go into Logos, I select my word, this is faith, right there, it's supposed to be faith, and hit copy. I open up a new Word document. Which is right there, so.
Designate what footnote format.
And then see, I can do footnotes, I can do widget, or I put right there at the bottom of this. So for that, and then there's my footnote, but I don't think it's right though. The format may be wrong.
Guess what page H? Same.
Yeah, I thought you go through and edit it.
Yeah, but at least you got it there.
So Logos will,
You want to make sure you look around to see if there's an author to this specific article.
well, that's the thing, is that was out of the Hebrew and English lexicon. That's what came up in that one. Now, if I probably went to like Strong's or something like that, but you said that was to be faith, and faith gave you that word.
Unique way, still.
Greek firmness, steadfastness, fidelity.
Sasha, you had a
46
question?
times.
Statement.
Yeah, I use the Blue Letter Bible, and I do the Trump
Okay,
for the nations.
yeah. Now, again, find as much information as you can from the people or from the website. Be consistent. That's also a good rule. and how you present the information. All right, right. Canvas, this is in the module for tonight, class 7. At the bottom, this is the, where am I going here? All of a sudden, it doesn't seem right. I've got 2 handouts. I didn't give you this hand. I think this is what I want to do. The handout that this one, you know, where I took that and you saw the samples for the pages, you know, for a syllabus / thesis. And that's this handout here, CU MDiv thesis. You know, I open it up, it's the exact same thing. It's also in module 4 when I first introduced it. Come on.
You don't want the research one, you want the thesis one, correct? There's 2 examples.
Yes, not the research paper. I want you to, for this class, we're doing the purpose of a paper over 20 pages where you gotta have a table of contents and then I'm thinking specifically for
Do we
the
need the abbreviation?
syllabus, so
one?
you don't have to write the whole paper for this class.
Do we need the one for abbreviation since we're not gonna have? really-
Only if you have abbreviations. Again, I said that was optional in that one handout.
It didn't say it on the.
I know it doesn't hear.
Sorry.
I said, yo, if you have them, great. I don't know what's not coming up. Anyway, that's that one. Here's see if this one will come up. Page layout details. It's in our style guide, but I didn't put it in this grouping of pages because we're talking more about actually writing tonight. Oh, come on, I don't know why it's not coming up. What it looks like, and if, see, we don't have the seminary manual. Oh, no. Oh, come on, there it is, it came up.
Oh, yeah.
It has some instructions about formatting. You know, a style guide takes Turabian, and for the course, I'm wanting you to just use Turabian 9. Style guide was written on 8, not a lot of differences, but just stay with 9 for the class here. The particulars about where to put items. In Turabian, it says, depending on who you're writing for, what school, what institution, what organization, they might have additional or refined expectations for their papers. All right, that's what our style guide is. That's what that means, if you've never thought that through. But here on this page, without spending a lot of time in Turabian, you can get a lot of information from our style guide, Calvary Addendum Style Guide to Turabian 8, unfortunately. But some good details about how to format a block quote, the edges, where to put a page number. Now I'm going to come back to some other things about it, but a page number, you know how to do a page number in Word. You have your Word document page open. I don't have one here. You click on the header space, put your mouse up in the header space, double click fast. That's one way to get there. Or you could go and try to find a header and open it up. And I like the shortcuts personally. So I show people, how'd you get there? Just click around with your mouse. That's a good way to do it. But then you get off in the right-hand corner and you insert page number. But the thing that you have to do that's different, I'm wanting you to get into Turabian, but actually getting into formatting for this final assignment. How do you get a page with no page numbers on them?
You mean like the II? Or
Not even II. Now, there's another question is, how do I write a document that has the little page numbers, but then change to 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't spend anything but what we're doing right now in this class, and if we need to do a little bit more, I'm assuming you all have worked with Word a little bit. You're having to make section breaks in the paper, and should call up a Word document just to look at it. Where the world document? Yeah, let's go to these. Sample. Yes, here's a Word document. All right, you can see Word at its layout. Let's go down. Now I'm going to click in the header information up here and see what pops up. And I'm looking up at the top of the page there. You're going to be dealing with different first page. That's a good one to use. There's your go to header or footer. I'm in the header right now, so it says go to the footer. Or you could just scroll down the piece of paper, and now I could put my cursor down in the footer type thing. There's like 3 or 4 ways to do everything. And here, I unfortunately, let me get rid of the markups here. No markup. So you're not seeing, get distracted by that. When you're in the preface information, you know, you're going to go down. I'm going to try to see notice it says header section 1. He's got to change it somewhere. Header section 2. So he's made a section break. There's footer section 1. So he made it on this page. Now he's got the page numbers at the bottom. So I'm assuming that's what he's doing with number 2. And I'm assuming his page 1 is section 3. And sure enough, we're in section 3 now.
That's not being shown.
Thanks, Sean. Back to Teams.
Shove all the other stuff in there.
All right, now we should be in Teams. All right, so Li Shuang, I've been showing in Word how to walk our way around. This isn't a class on Word. Now, let me ask, the seminary students, did you all have any orientation to using software at the beginning?
Undergrad, I did.
The college does in a separate class.
Yeah. Here, no.
You didn't?
Not seminary, no.
Well, then I guess we're assuming you're big boys and you've worked with it a little bit.
I say it's the same format I used for my undergraduate.
Yeah.
We did trade, so I
Yeah.
was used to it from that. When I went
So
to my
I'm
undergraduate.
assuming, I didn't know whether we had something out in Canvas for people that are new to graduate school. You know, this is what the software is that we use and everything. All right, so we're assuming you.
You can go online and find some pretty good stuff. Though.
Oh, you sure can. Videos and everything. Yeah.
There's a lot of different universities that have, like, well, Purdue is one.
Purdue's
Put a
the,
lot of their stuff on there, yeah.
one of the biggest
Purdue
ones.
Yeah.
Use it.
Purdue Al is
Yeah.
probably one of the biggest ones that we
That helped me
use.
so much, yeah, on my undergraduate.
Notice one thing he's done, and it depends on how he typed in the text. Notice off to the left, it just popped up normally, the navigation, and that comes through designating a header. Let's go back to home. Now, that's normal text, but if we go down into the document itself, now see he's got heading 1. Heading 1, importance of the study. Now here's heading 2. So that's another level of outlining that really helps you do a lot of things, even with putting in the page numbers in an index. I mean, not an index, that's a little harder. Contents page. All right, for the assignment, I'm asking you to do what this gentleman has, not a blank page. You'd either start with, it doesn't matter to me, your abstract like he's done here, or you could put the abstract after the title page is prefatory information, a title page, and lay it out just like we have it here. The due date of the assignment here.
Can you go back to the title page, sir?
Pardon?
Can you go back to the title page to make sure we're doing the right one? Okay, yeah, that's what.
A thesis presented to, as opposed to a paper.
Are you wanting us to do the impartial fulfillment part on there?
And that's the requirement for the course. Do it. It's like a syllabus.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah, that's fine.
I did mine, I'm not a master of divinity, so I did mine a little different.
Well, make it your degree then.
Okay.
Okay,
As if you're doing it for, Master of Arts in Biblical Bible Theology.
Okay.
For your degree. Yep. Sorry, I didn't even think of that.
that's okay.
And I did it to you, by the way.
Yes, not to anybody else. Well, I know you don't put the professor's name on the title page, right? We'll say.
It does, and they have the example in here.
Did it?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes. If it's actual thesis, we do that later, don't we?
Yeah, they did have it on there.
And on the abstract page you're looking at,
I've got to go back to it. I got it there somewhere. I actually brought it in.
it's not on the title page, but in the abstract it is.
Okay. The research paper submitted too.
Yeah, I know the, oh, you want, no, I didn't do an abstract. I did it. I guess not. Well, no, it says presented to the faculty of, but I did it to you.
Yeah.
For thesis.
Yeah, this one here.
Yeah. This
On the
is
sample says a research paper submitted too.
Yeah, if it's a research paper, then it'd be to the specific
Okay, yeah.
person, but if it's a thesis, then it's
So either way,
to the faculty. Yeah, it's really just to
get you this.
Yep,
I'm
go
not
through
doing
it.
it, so.
template, knowing that we have criteria for classes and specific documents like this. So I'm expecting a contents page now where you're taking your chapter titles, page numbers, and then the subheadings. Notice there's no introduction. Well, there is, excuse me. So if you have introduction, it would be the bibliography at the end. You end up on another page. Now, the individual chapters start on a new page. Like the rest. Okay, we've shown that before. And then the bibliography at the end. This last assignment is bringing it all back together, adding anything else that you want to do from tonight that we think about, and I'm going to talk about here, just the leading body paragraphs. This isn't necessarily everything that you want to say in a chapter. Questions, anybody, about formatting? You have this for just overall. This will give you some detailed information about wording and footnotes and spacing, but that comes right out of our style guide. Let's talk about the leading body paragraphs. Back here. I'm gonna stop sharing. Where do I need to go? No, it's not here. There's. All right. So I don't mess everybody up. Stop that. So I can find a specific thing. And as I said, Rick, you're gonna use yours.
Would it be possible to look at those this evening by chance so we could, or talk?
I'm gonna make sure I get it done tomorrow morning,
Okay.
if that's all right.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Either that or James when she says tonight.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, I usually do my work at night, but that's it.
Hey, tough. He's a tough guy. All right. And on this assignment, I'm not looking for, you let me get this back up. Let me do it. I turned it on and off. It's probably the hardest thing in the whole night, getting your screen on. Come on. And the battery finally quit. No, there it is. Oh, all right, you just used a. Sean, are you seeing that on your screen?
Sorry.
That's that's okay. You didn't have
See it on
to.
that screen.
I'm sorry. I know you can see it on that screen. Right?
No, sir.
No, you aren't. I'm not sure. I thought I didn't. We didn't. No, we should. Once I get back to it.
Nah.
What am I doing? Back over here. There we go. Now you should do it. You just formatted this like a non-research paper, put your name at the top, which is fine. That's exactly what I wanted. But now you're coming down chapter 1. You do not have to put in headings. Like you remember I showed in that other paper that he has. I don't know if I have it up still.
Yeah, like heading 1.
That's heading 1 or 2. No, I don't do that.
Okay.
Now, on the paper, you will,
You don't need to.
So
But
now,
you can.
Now, what are you asking? What are you saying?
well, now I'm talking the chapter 1 introduction, that one right there.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would be on our paper.
Yes,
Yeah, but you don't have to
Yes.
format as a heading.
in Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
You don't have to
I
get-
just.
Just type it
Yeah,
in, center it,
I
double
type
space
all
it.
that stuff out, just like that.
Yeah.
I've been doing all that fancy stuff.
Um,
Never have for all my papers. So
Yeah.
hopefully I'll do that.
Now, this is where, yeah, I'm just noticed a couple of formatting details. Did it say it the same way?
Now this, I didn't do it on here. I just went chapter 1 and I didn't do all the fancy stuff on this one. I just said. it's my
No,
intro.
no, that's fine.
Yeah.
I have that already.
I'm going to come back and do formatting, but I'm talking about formatting now. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm picking up. When it comes to subsections, let me go to Turabian, everybody, and see if I've got it flagged. I used to have it flagged. Probably not. Should be a crinkled piece of paper, not charts and graphs.
Yeah, they really need to get that style guide updated, don't they? It really helps.
Yeah, as I go through this class multiple times, and I think I need to put out my own or something.
The
But
book's just not up by it.
in it, the Bible theology department says, follow Turabian and use our style guide. I'm still sort of stuck. I can't do my own thing.
Yeah, this thing's different. And it doesn't have to be exact.
Subheads A224. Nah, that's not what I'm looking for, but maybe it is. A224. 4 sections and subsections. All right, in our style guide, we've talked about, so this is on section A2, it's in the appendix, A2.2.4, sections, subsections, if you're following them. Here's a plan for 5 levels of subheads. Now, what you did with yours is not what we do on a thesis by the example. Notice in the sample, it's not bold. You've got bold.
Oh, for the
You have
introduction. Okay.
just the first letter capitalized. We've got the whole word capitalized. Because if you go to the contents, it shows the whole title.
Okay.
Though we use the word chapter on the top of the page, we just use it once at the top of the contents page. There, chapter 1. Notice that's all capitals. Again, details.
On this one, you weren't looking for that. I thought on the legal.
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying, while I have this up, let
Okay.
me highlight some things.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you're going to be walking out the door and coming back with what you should produce.
Right. Okay.
So that should be all capitals. But then when you get to your subheadings, then it's like you do it, you capitalize the first
Mhm.
letter of the sentence, of the title of the subhead. Where does it say? Unless you have local guidelines, have rules for subheads, you may devise your own typography. So they give you a lot of freedom here. Where does it go? It's
You said you're on 2, what, sir?
A2.2.4,
Sections and
page
subsections.
404.
Got it. Okay, now I'm trying.
Never end a page with a subhead. That's a good thing. We say that in our thing. Separate run-ins. Oh, no. See, it has specific instructions, whereas our Turabian style guide, and this is what you want to go to. And there's the page. Paragraph, sentence, types of language. Nope. Pagination. Headings, right in the beginning. Yes, it's page 2 and 3. Headings. That's not a title. The headings start with what you've done here, Richard, is italicized the first. And we say italicize the first centered section, so that's correct. If you came down to a sub level, meaning it's
After that.
After that one.
Levels in this section, but you're going down.
And it's not.
You still stay in the center.
Yeah.
But you get rid of the italics.
Right.
Then if you had a third level down,
Still the same format, centered.
no, you go off to the left,
Oh, flush left. Okay, so like it says right here.
italicized. The fourth, flush left, not italicized. So there's just a methodology you would develop that
It's not
we
bold.
have a specific guide here in our style guide at the bottom, and you can see the different levels. You know, you're not going to do that for this paper. You're probably just going to have your title for the chapter, all caps, and then and not, what do they call it, headline caps. You know, don't click on that and Word.
So the only thing you did wrong on that one, that is just, it's not supposed to be bold. That should be.
Well, and the name, those letters should all be capitals.
Okay, so the one is correct, then it's in the example that's on that hut.
Yes, yep. Okay. Okay. So just some details there. And then you did the same thing with the section.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Okay. All right, now, unless there's another question about format I should deal with, you know, this has good information about quotations and all the rest. So go through the style guide, and that'll help you out there, page 2 and 3. So Li Shuang, you can find our style guide in one of the announcements in our course in Canvas, and it has the Turabian style guide. Just download the file, open it up, and you'll get more information about how to format things. Examples of how to format bibliography, bibliographic entries as well. I think off the top of the head. All right, leading body paragraphs. What we've done for laying out a paper, we started with just a concept, an idea, a question, a problem in our mind. I want to research the topic of, and we want to narrow it as much as we can without being so narrow it can't be studied, but not so broad that it's just, wow. And you'll find that as you start getting into it. So I've got a topic. I want to study the topic of because, you remember that 3-step thing, it's a question. And here's your research question, your research problem. You know, there's a couple ways you could ask that. There's a problem out there. I don't think people, what's the right way to translate? What's the right way to understand this truth? How should we respond? All right. I want to study this topic because we need to know how to, and I don't use a question there when I write that out, but I'm seeing an implied question, and I want to have it clearly in my mind. And then that final one, so that, now I'm thinking of my audience, that social contract, you know, how would it help them maybe? And then you're thinking of, is that just giving them information? Is that solving a problem they have, or, you know, advancing knowledge? You know, those other 3 things we were thinking of when we're trying to think through the research topic there. Then we start putting out in our mind, you know, where do we think I need to go? And you start doing some research on that topic and find out who else has studied it in order to find a specific focus, which takes me back up to that topic, takes me back to the question, the problem, and the benefit for the reader. So I'm always sort of doing a cyclical thing, and I come back up from this topic or a research question, whatever as you think of it. And I'm always coming back and make sure I'm refining that appropriately. But I'm identifying sources, part of what we did here, but I'm also getting a sense of, you know, I need to deal with this kind of topic first, and then that, you know, there's some things going on in our mind. And whether you lay it out in a document or use Post-it notes, you just start putting out what will end up either reasons. You know, I've got the right solution. Now, that sounds like I've got a thesis going there. Yes, I'm going to come to some tentative conclusion, but I know to answer the question and to ultimately prove my thesis, my point, I've got to deal with this kind of evidence. So reason 1, the Bible says so. Reason 2, nobody else is finding the right answer. Reason 3, you know, it's the neatest things in sliced bread. You know, whatever you're starting to lay out reasons, and underneath those reasons, all right, you're going to make a statement. I believe it's the Bible says so. What's the natural response to that? Where? So you're going to do a biblical study. Wow, I've got 20 passages. Oh no, I'm doing somewhat going back to where other people have gone or where they haven't gone. And I'm going, that's a significant one. No, those don't. Up that one I got. So you're always refining or adding as you're going through your research there, but you're laying out a structure in your mind of things that you need to cover that'll prove your thesis and answer that practical. And I say the word practical, it's not always practical, meaning a ministry oriented thing, but it'll answer that question for the so what for the reader. I'm going to think of some organization in my mind, but then I'm going to go back out and start researching it. Down the road, I'm trying to compress without over talking here. I'm going to start putting things to paper, and that's where I've called a prose outline, where we're all a little different on this. Some of us are a little bit more organic. We're in our mind. We can just see it and it stays there. Others, and I'm one of those, until I start writing it out and organizing it, I got to have organization. That's just me. Then I don't sense the oughtness of the research project. I'm just talking about myself. And so you've got to find out what flows well for you when you're putting together a paper or research project. Okay. When it comes to starting putting things in paper, when you do that. But that prose outline was, now I'm just going to start talking to myself. I know I need, and some of us put sentences together and we're verbal. And others, no, I'm just going to list it out. And I'm debating as we go through this class, I go, maybe that, because every class has struggled with the prose outline concept. So maybe there's a median road I'm thinking of. For some of us, it's more like bullet statements. But for sure, what you're wanting to lay out is, what am I wanting to prove in this section of the paper? And meaning, that's my reason. It takes me back to my thesis, but that's right because the Bible says so and now I want to make sure I identify the evidence and the reasons in that major area of reasons. And same thing with the next one. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just starting to write it out. Yeah, I'm starting to file in a sense. There's a hesitation for some of us when we start typing. We stay with the computer and then we lose everything when it comes to where am I at? What am I doing? Well, I'm just composing. And I've got to watch out for that personally because of my organizational bent. I have my first daughter is very organic, does everything just off the cuff. She was a teacher, public school teacher for a number of years. And she hated putting together lesson plans but they were all in her head. She's an excellent teacher. And my second daughter, she is misorganization. If it's not written down, she can't do it. And so they're two opposite. We're all different as well. I'm trying to illustrate, which is great. God made us all differently. But find that balance so that as you start writing, and now I'm into doing my research. I've got a student I just approved his proposal, and now he's going to come at me with a syllabus in a couple of weeks. Maybe you'd be able to, depending on how much time you've spent. Maybe it's a couple months. You got the rest of life there going on. But he's going to come back with what I'm asking you to come back next week with. You've got a layout, so I can see that, and think about it for the assignment purposes. Now, the specific instructor will have a specific layout. Give me 7 chapters, and this is what you need to cover in each chapter. Or you say, just come back and prove your point. I don't care how many chapters it takes. Now, Sean, am I confusing you? Scratch your head. Please stop me whenever.
No, you're fine, sir.
Good. I've given you information concerning a typical master's thesis here that we do at the MDiv level. And your introduction has background. So here's our assignment for tonight, as well as then what you come back with a syllabus. That chapter 1 should talk about your research problem, the question, and that includes a little bit about context and background and setup for the problem and the question that people have and ask. So I'm bouncing back and forth with words there. To eventually say in your opening chapter here, so we're going to go back to this chapter. What is your thesis? And that should be in that opening section. And then after your thesis, that's usually where we put maybe an extra paragraph, maybe in that same paragraph. How am I going to approach it? Tell me where we're going to go through the rest of the paper. And that allows you as a writer to think out loud. I shouldn't say think out loud. To think of, okay, I'm going to, now I need to prove this first in order to then be able to put a context for analyzing this, which then leads me to a final, and that's the typical, we do a biblical study because we want to in the Bible theology department. You struggle with theology / the Bible. And that means the languages if you've had them. So we look at that in that chapter. Then the next chapter, I want to see critical thinking, meaning you've evaluated other people that have thought of the problem. Now, when we talk as advisee, maybe we'll swap those 2 chapters because it just makes more sense to argue that way. All right, but that's a layout thing. Which once I get done with the biblical, then how do other people answer that question? So I'm doing my literature research, I'm doing critical thinking, evaluating them in light of the Bible and scripture. So what I found here, I'm going to use here, talking with people, which then leads me to and here for a master's thesis here, we want a practical. Our master's degree is a ministry degree. So we want a chapter where you apply it to life. And you're then now taking it, you had to go here because we ground everything in the Bible. I want to deal with what other people have done because I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but I also want to advance knowledge. And now I'm going to go, this is how we should live it out. And these are the reasons why. And you're going to be coming back to information in both of those, more than likely. Things that were not adequate, things that were needed, things in a unique context. I've had students that have done theses for the missionary setting. I'm thinking of Larry Baird, who is in Mexico, and he wrote his thesis on syncretism and literature that they pass out to former Roman Catholics who have a dualistic thinking, Christianity / paganism. Maybe my words, not his. And then others in local churches and in specific parachurch organizations. So for your specific context that you're thinking of, the so what people that you're writing for, and then that final chapter, the conclusion is, all right, this is what I proved and this is how I did it. And, there's a few other things that people could cover, but I think this is the best way to approach this problem. That's a general structure. Looking at Ricky's here, you got a number of questions. Good. That engages the reader. I like it. A vital question. You're actually using that word. Excuse me, go on. The problem. If a Christian requires a second worker, then some are. Oh wow, really? Your thesis. This research will seek to prove Christians will seek to prove. Okay, good. Yeah. Whether you say it's stronger, weaker, right?
Yeah.
Not any weaker, but that's not what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I guess. Yeah.
But I was talking about here, just an example of
Yeah.
equivocating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to seek to prove it.
Yeah.
People might get to the end and go, no, you didn't prove it.
Right.
Okay. It's your problem, not mine. I proved it. You just didn't like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the weird part, to see if you want to actually write it as you already proved it, or because you haven't written it yet.
Yes, and there's the tension with the syllabus. Good statement.
That's true.
But it's still like what we all do. I think this is what I'm going to find. And then you get down the road and go,
myself.
oh, that didn't work.
Yeah.
So
I didn't put I think, but I tried to put that.
Yeah.
But that's appropriate. Say what you think it's going to be right now. Yes, I understand that's a hypothesis, but you're going to try to prove that hypothesis is really what you're going down the road to do, which means you're going to come back and change it all by the final product that you get done. But that's not what we're having to worry about here.
Just for future reference, though,
Yes.
Does that happen often when you think you're going to prove one thing and then
I don't
turns
know.
out
I'd be the wrong
I know
one
if
to
you've
ask
had
on
that.
it.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, it happens a lot.
Okay,
I
that's
know.
right. I was like,
It's happening to me right now because I've had one portion of mine, because I told you I broke mine down. It's a little big, but oh my gosh, there's a section in there. So I think I may have been wrong in this. I thought,
okay. Well, yeah, there you go.
but actually, it's going to be kind of fun. if I was actually able to finish it, I think it would actually be fun to actually put it the way it is there.
Yeah.
Kind of gives people a little bit of a. different
The
taste to it.
interesting thing is, usually what we get at the end, it's not that no, I'm thinking of people to help people write articles for a JOBA. That's the context I'm dealing with. I just dealt with one of the authors who was there at the conference. And we just said, not in your current form. You do something with your article. And he came back and, oh, okay, good. And the thing that he's lacking in his article, he's used some words that he assumes everybody knows, and therefore it doesn't make sense as you go through the paper. And then he packs things in that seem too broad, again, because of the clarity on the term. So he needs to go back to the beginning and clarify that and maybe get rid of some of the stuff that he's dealing with. Because it has a feel he's trying to cover way too much. Don't do that. That's another issue. And you mean that's me. You're asking, have I ever dealt with it? Yeah, that's what I had too.
I'm right there right now.
I let my wife read it through, and she's just brutal. She's, you don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that either. Oh.
But you see something in your mind, you're sitting there going, well, yeah, I do, because I want to prove this to get to that next level. And so, have mercy on that.
That issue of focus,
It's because it is something I think everybody will enjoy, but.
Yeah. Let me touch on detail I see here. You've got a footnote.
Yeah.
On the first page. 2, and here's our statement from our style guide.
Yeah.
When you quote, the first time you quote from the Bible in our papers at school, we want you to tell us what translation you're using. And it says, unless otherwise noted. Now, there's another question with that one. Scripture quotations are taken from, and you give a full footnote reference from, and it should be at the front of the Bible.
Yeah, the style guide doesn't say that. That one actually is the example from his.
Yes.
The style guide actually goes a little bit shorter, so it's also one liner, but I
Yeah.
I use that too.
But this isn't where you need it,
Okay.
because you didn't quote anything.
That's what I thought, because on the next one I had it there, then I moved it to the first one. I was like, I don't know which one.
So
'cause
just
I had
move it down to
on
here.
2 Corinthians.
Therefore, is anyone, and put it at the
That's
end
where I
there.
originally had it, and I was like, I don't know if it should be up there. or
It
not.
goes with your first direct quote,
Actual
whether it's
quote.
a portion or a whole verse.
Right.
Just
Because there I
use the
just
first one.
referenced it. Yeah.
How do you tell us if you're using a different translation? You don't have to go down and use a whole footnote.
Just put it in there like the.
You just put in, at the end of that,
ESV and ASV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that abbreviations. Now, see, there's where your abbreviation list comes in, and you go, okay, if I use ESV, then I've got, that's what it means.
Okay.
Type thing.
Okay.
Now, that's an exception. Probably if you're just using Turabian and not writing for Calvary, we allow that. There's some things we allow an exception. There's a great list of abbreviations in our style guide. You can already assume, and shortening of publishers too. What I would do.
Did he need to have a title there? I know he's got
Where?
Romans to start there.
Mhm.
Since that's actually just part of it, part of that introduction there. Could you do that without having that? Because it's actually part of his introduction.
What do you have? The 2 Corinthians? thing?
No, yeah, he's got 2 Corinthians. Oh, I see what you did. You did.
Yes.
You're going off of different books.
Yeah, 2 different passages.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I see. Sorry,
That's okay.
I wasn't reading.
I don't know if I understand what you're saying. What I'd want you to do here, you're doing a biblical study. And this is what, now you're gonna take everything here, but add a little bit more for the next assignment, for the syllabus. What are you gonna do in this chapter? You sort of jumped right into it. Yeah, that first sentence,
Okay.
yeah, just tell me, but why? Now let me read what I
Okay.
wrote up here. What each chapter in a syllabus, now here I'm talking about this assignment here, and I've not read everybody's. Tell me what you're going to be doing in this chapter and why. So that keeps in front of the reader, okay, you've already told me what your approach here, because I got to demonstrate, and these are the passages, just list them, or maybe you're just going to do biblical significant passages, and then the next chapter I'm going to do this and this. Now you're coming up here and you're going to start like you did there, and remind me,
What it is.
I think that the following biblical text are going to demonstrate. You can remind me of your thesis, but tell me where you're going. And it's just sort of like a repeat of what you do at the end. For your syllabus, that's the same thing. You haven't done this research yet fully, but you're going to start it out, talk a little bit about it. You're talking to yourself in the syllabus, you're talking to your advisor, so I could hear into your mind. The purpose of the syllabus is, okay, I know where you're going in this chapter. I know why you're going to go there and why you're going to cover these things. Now, once you get into it, maybe you're going to realize, and I'm going to use the student who's just set a proposal out, as he laid it out, and I came back to him with my reflection, trying to tell him what to be thinking, sort of like I did just in the context of what I'm describing here. And I said, I think you're too broad. You need to narrow in on, and he listed a bunch of theologians and a bunch of passages. Well, he's got to decide which ones to focus on. And I said, focus on some contemporary because the overall topic's been out there for a while. So why would you cover it again? Now he's got a very specific why you want, so what? But he's got to tell me in the middle, then why are you going to cover this theologian from 30 years ago when there are some that are current? Well, maybe because they built off, so he's got to plow the ground in his introduction in that section, or maybe in the introduction. But then he's going to focus on people that might be reading today. Who are the hot people in this topic? You know, so that's, I'm coming back at him, and we're going to be refining ourselves. But you're just going to lay out what you think you need to do. The advisor will look at it and go, boy, yeah, those are significant passages. Do you think you can cover them all in depth? Do you think that really is the most significant one now? Those type of questions. But at this point with the syllabus, you're laying out what you think is an appropriate argument and then getting feedback from other people. There's the advisor. And then they're going to say, go at it, start writing your first and second chapter.
Okay.
And then turn those in. He's going to look at that while you're thinking of the next three, the rest of it. So tell me what you're going to do in each chapter and why. And that's really what you're wanting to accomplish with the syllabus. Let me go down to your next chapter. You're doing theology here.
Yeah.
Reform view. Yeah, it hit me. There are other views.
Yeah.
You don't talk about any of the others. You don't mention the others. Why'd you choose this one? You know, how does it help you? Is this? I left by looking through the rest of it. Your assumption is the reform view on this topic is the correct view.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
But I don't rehear that.
Okay.
So why did you choose that one?
Oh,
Is
okay.
what I'm saying.
Okay.
So you need to help the reader. And then what do you do in the chapter to advance your argument? And you're just staying with this view. And again, that's a question coming back. Maybe you'd want to, you know, if you're doing a
They give you some good arguments too.
different place, maybe you're going to
They have to make a lot.
interact with people that are interacting with the passages that you come to.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah. Okay.
And then as you start your chapter 4,
Mm-hmm.
and this is going to happen. So he's got his defense of the biblical view.
Yeah.
Now this is where I haven't spent a lot of time with, because as soon as I say that, I go, maybe I need to come back and look at it again to hear. And this is where I want to hear you going. Are you just wanting to do a theological study?
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like you're wanting to defend something. Yeah. Technically, now I'm going to step back and think in if you were doing a master's divinity degree, I'd want you to do a practical thing here in this chapter.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause I wrote that down earlier where you said chapter 4. I was like, I didn't do that
Yeah.
for chapter 4. Chapter 5 is kind of where I did more of the
Yeah,
application.
and so
that's
maybe it
more-
could be 5 and 6. You have 6 chapters,
Okay,
you know.
yeah. 'Cause I'm like, I guess
As you're laying it out,
application.
and
Yeah.
I just want to write a book or an article. Well, great.
Mhm.
Don't be restricted to our, conventions for a thesis here.
Okay.
Oh, good, because I.
You did 6 chapters at least, I saw,
Yes.
right?
Okay. Yeah, because I
And
kind of wrapped.
Masashi, I think you did 2. Now, I
Oh,
have not
okay.
read yours in depth at all.
Yeah.
I think you presented 6 chapters.
5 chapters.
But okay,
Yeah.
then maybe it's.
I thought we could
this
only
one.
have 5, so I did application and conclusion kind of in 5.
Yeah.
Is what, yeah. So, okay, that helps to know that we could have more. Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote here chapter 4. Sounds like,
Yeah.
it struck me that this part of it here at the beginning
Mhm.
sounds like a discussion you do in the previous chapter.
Yeah.
If you're critiquing views, which I thought chapter 3 was. And again, that's maybe
Okay.
where.
Yeah.
Come
And then
back
what I
and
would do
refine
is
it a
then I
little
could
bit.
put application in 4 and then conclusion in 5.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
And I get
that
to the end
helps.
of it, I go, oh no, he's really saying that this is the appropriate one. So it,
Okay.
again, I think that's something you'd want to eventually work it through in your third chapter, perhaps.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Mine's gonna be argumentative all the way through because there's basically, you're gonna have both pros and the cons. It's kind of like working through there. So I didn't put it as one particular chapter as a defense because there's really gonna have to be as the elements went along type of thing.
Okay,
So
I'd have to
don't
look
know.
at it and see
You-
what
you
you're,
look
what you're
at that
doing
when you
with
do
it.
And see.
You
I
know,
hope.
and maybe it's a logical way of arguing it.
I was trying to get a lot, it was really, this was interesting.
Mhm.
That's why I was having
Yeah.
a struggle with it.
That's what I was doing too. I don't normally do this.
No.
It was
No,
good though.
we
It was
don't.
good exercise because I'm like,
Never
Good.
this
thought
isn't
I
what I
used
do.
for it.
Yeah, but it
Good.
helped. Yeah, and talking through it helped. too.
And when you think of doing this, applying this methodology to a paper,
Mhm.
wow, we don't set out with specific things like this, but yeah, you got to have a progression of thinking.
does,
So I hope you're getting that out of it. You know, what, for my reader, what's going to be, and sometimes we argue from the easiest to get rid of to the hardest. Other times we start with the hardest, that, I just jump right into the water of the deep end and then you can deal with the other ones. If you've read D.A. Carson a lot and his, he'll start out with 10 reasons why. And the first one, well, that's not the right one. No, and this is why it's wrong. And then the second one. So he has a unique methodology. It's good, effective.
He's good at it.
And he builds up to the strong, usually it's building to the strongest argument, what you're doing. Okay, that's good. That's all I observe there. Let me do the rubric, which you all haven't seen, but it's simple. I'm just trying to help you. I'm at 10% on formatting layout, meaning you're not doing layout, but are you starting to put footnotes in? Cool, that's part of it. Give it a title like we have there, but again, the final product is the title, you know, and everything formatted. So I'm not worried about it. The final syllabus, spelling, punctuation, grammar, style, CBC style guide and Turabian formats. So that's part of it. The argument is another part of the syllabus, meaning I can hear an argument flowing. Now, you haven't laid it out, you haven't argued it yet because you haven't done all your research. I understand that.
Okay.
But I want to hear that you have a research, I don't know the word, approach. Yeah, it's comprehensive, you know, and fair. Conclusions, now again, you don't have your conclusions, but looking for well-supported. And I'm going to be looking for it on the syllabus level. You know, if you're eventually at the thesis level, for sure, we're looking for the reasoning and accurate interpretations and all the rest. But I'm not going to see that because you're not going to present all that. You're just going to tell me I need to study this passage because, and it's one line evidence. And I need to understand this passage, Romans, now, because I believe it. And you aren't using first person, because we don't use third person, but
So, yeah, if I just put like, I need to study this further without actually doing like on.
tell me what you think you're going to find.
Okay, yeah, because
In that section.
I've been reading Martin Lloyd-Jones' whole book just on Romans 6, and I'm like, there's too much. Like, this is like, I can do small portions of it, and I know what I want to look at, but actually, yeah, all of it, yeah, okay, yeah. So there's,
This generation we were talking about. it's-
yeah, yeah. So especially for this paper, I can put this is what I want.
Yes,
Okay,
that's
that
what the
helps.
syllabus is all about.
Okay.
I'm not asking you to write the
I
paper.
was
or
gonna
do
get a
the
little bit
research.
of helpful.
And you can make your presumptions and then also basically this is what I'm gonna presume. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What I think I'm going to find type thing without saying those words.
I still
But
think mine
for
would be
the leading body paragraphs, I'm looking at chapter 1. Did you set up the problem, the question, the context, the thesis, say it, what you think you're going to prove, and your approach. Then I'm going to look at 2, 3, 4, 5, the rest of it, all the chapters, because they're really all the same. The purpose for each chapter, the approach to each chapter, the relevance of that chapter's material to the thesis is what you need to be thinking of as you're laying this out in your mind, because now you're thinking of your argument.
Sir?
Yes.
So basically, these leading body questions are actually going to be the start to each one of those
Yep.
as correct. And then we're just building on each one of those.
Yes.
So that's,
Right. So what you're going to do with the syllabus, you're going to take everything you've written, put it in the right format as you come to the formatting time. Maybe that's after you get it done. And again, I've not looked at everything. You seem to add. Let me look at yours.
look at mine.
Pardon?
Maybe you won't.
Chapter 1, introduction. You got a research question, the problem. Dealt with more questions there in your second page, the purpose of the thesis. I see your thesis there on the top of your third page. You've really got a lot here. And basic assumptions. Cool. You're trying to find some. I haven't read that through, what that means. But did you talk about, what your major reasons?
Hurdles.
Those are your chapters. What's
No.
going to be your approach to arguing? Did
No,
you
well,
talk about that?
No, how would you want that presented on there? Or-
Usually it's right at the end of your opening chapter. Now, in this case, it'll help you because you go, all right, I've not written it all because I've not studied it all, not crafted it all word-wise, but I know from the background, I know the problem and the issues.
Oh, so,
And this is what I think is the right answer, my thesis
okay.
for the problem.
Right.
And now I'm going to step on, and this is usually, you have another paragraph or added that final paragraph where after you introduce your thesis, you're going to say, and I'm going to prove this thesis by doing a biblical study and then a study of either 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are your chapters. And you help the reader to anticipate your flow of argument.
Okay.
You're going to argue biblically, and then theologically, and then practically, or I know I have to first deal with this major issue, and I know it's going to take, 5, 6, 10 pages anticipated. And then I'm going to shift to this, and you're thinking of those when we're talking about reasons, a major reason why your thesis is correct. And in the process, you might be, that's my reason, but here's people have different conclusions. So you might be combining the two.
Okay. And that was that part of the leading body you said that I would have had to do that in there?
Only in the
not.
sense of telling me, but you're not actually going to do it all.
Okay.
What are you
I mean,
asking?
continuing, when I do the regular syllabus, that's where I'm going to be adding those onto there because I didn't put all that on to that, obviously.
I'm looking at your chapter 2 and 3, but again, especially America. Tell me what you're going to do in each chapter and why you're going to do it, means relative to your thesis and how. So in this chapter, we're going to be studying this in light of this theological perspective, or this term in light of.
I got headache.
Cool. You're fine. You're learning.
I just, yeah. We'll talk.
But what that does for you as a syllabus, it starts laying out in front of you your study assignments. I mean, I got to study this first. Now, knowing that as you get down the road, as you're doing it, then you're going to be recrafting and shifting some things around.
Yeah, I wasn't doing that as the leading. I was basically trying to say, hey, this is the structure here, then go into that when we do this. But I guess I got that wrong.
Yeah, no. I'm hoping I'm not confusing you with what you did.
Oh,
with
yes,
this
you
one.
did, but we'll talk about it later. That's a good question over break.
And what do you feel you lacked?
I don't know. That's what I'm.
That's what you're having. I'll
I'll
read it in
have
the
to
morning
say
and get back to
that
you.
was, yeah, this was tough.
You're all on the right track is what I'm going to encourage you all about, because it gets confusing here. You're learning a new methodology, new approach. That's part of it. Hopefully it'll be beneficial for you. If not, chuck it all out and do what works for you after this class, unfortunately. Because our last assignment is that putting that syllabus together. I'm just, Masashi, I have not lived through yours. And you have a longer first chapter, and then you do your second, third, fourth. And you're doing a biblical study, the views on the eschatology of each. Cool. So that's where you deal with other people in your chapter 3. Christian life on the basis of it. Yeah. Now, and I'm just going to highlight again, I haven't read anything here. You have in your mind as the writer, where you're going, which is to show everybody, this is what the Bible said. Now I'm just going to use the structure of the thesis. This is what the Bible says. This is what other people have said. I don't think it's totally adequate, or I want to build off of it, or they all blew it and they didn't see it at all. And now I want to show you, so you're looking down the road, and I should see how all the other chapters fit together. It's not just, I'm doing this assignment, now I'm going to move to another kind of assignment. No, it's a whole argument that should fit together and build one on another. But then what we're talking about here at this level, again, I'm repeating myself, I want to help the reader to anticipate by giving them my thesis and structure, the flow of my argument, because they might want to jump ahead to a chapter. So where you read a book, and then I'll go to a chapter. What do you say about this? Really? But then you're saying, okay, I guess I got to go read your other chapter too. Hopefully that'll be what works for them. Other questions, anybody? Masashi, I didn't really deal in yours very far, but did you have a question in light of anything that we talking about?
I'll ask you later.
Okay, good. Sorry, guys, I didn't get through it. Let's take a break. We're 20 after. And we'll come back and write it. Oh, he's got to look. No.
No, we'll just wait. You can see how.
Pardon?
I'll just let you read it and you can go from there tomorrow morning.
I like it, I not knowing what I was gonna say, but you're.
Talking through it helps.
I know it, yeah, it was just structurally, it's just different, I've been writing papers for the last 4 years here, and so it's different, and it's just
Yeah.
hard to get out of that same frame of mind.
Yeah.
So
It's hard for me because I think I would be more like, was it your first daughter that just has it all in their head? And that's me. My sister would love this. This is what she does.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, I don't do this at all. It's like sermon prep. Some guys have full manuscripts. I have like a few bullet points.
That's where,
And that's
Yep,
what-
that's
how my
another
brain
good
works, because
example too.
If
isn't
I
it?
have a full manuscript, I've tried it because one of the guys that was mentoring me for a while, he goes, write a full one and see, it was miserable. Because I would go off
Yes.
script and then I would look back down, I'm like, oh no, now where am I? You know, it's like,
yes, oh,
trying to go back and
shoot.
forth, so I couldn't do it. So, and then he told me afterwards, he's like, yeah, you're not as good at that. I'm like, I know. I'm like, it was miserable. I'm like,
Please.
not how my
I know my
brain
shirt
works.
works.
Yeah,
And for a
this is
class
where,
we
like,
don't know.
this type of thing, trying to format it before doing it, it's a stretch for me, but it's good. I've enjoyed it because it makes me think differently about, okay, how am I
That's for sure.
structuring? Yeah.
That's why I sent it
Yeah.
to you, because I was like, still trying to get the concept down. I saw your answer, I was like, yeah. By the way, because he does it a little bit differently than
This
what I
one
did,
means one
because I
thing.
was looking at it, I was
And
like,
that's
yeah,
all
I
it
don't
means.
really
It doesn't mean-
simplify
I
it.
mean, there are different
20
ways to
pages
skin the
of
cat,
crap.
different words used. In fact, you dealt with basic assumptions. Good. I'm assuming that you're talking about common ground,
Very.
and maybe that's the nature of
I
what.
wanted to get a little bit more into that, but I still had to finish that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
You know,
I-
more like
That was the other
paper
thing,
stuff.
you get to running out of time.
I write
Yes.
my
Oh,
paper
shoot.
all at once.
Because I'll honestly
Yeah,
say, if
this
I
is
was
hard
to do a thesis,
It's
I
like,
told you,
this
if
is
I had to do a
hard.
thesis in this class, I'd be doing it on my time, my way, and trust me,
Yeah,
it'd take a
I
while. And I'd be coming at you a lot and say,
Yes,
You're
yes,
the
please.
first-
Now, I want to graduate.
Does it work?
Yeah,
Does it
I
work?
just-
You do. Yeah. In a
But
literal
to
sense, you do.
me, I would, I was thinking it was gonna be more along the lines of like how we do researches for like our classes here. Sorry, Dr.
Well,
Dawes.
there's
That's an, that's an element that, you talk about what to cover.
Yeah, and that's, and that's like I said.
That
this
I
is-
struggle with. Maybe we should do more of that.
Huh?
Yeah.
Maybe we should do more of what you're talking about. If I heard what you were saying.
Yeah. To do more of like the actual just research. Like
Yeah, how we do like
Okay.
papers in class and not geared towards the, I know what this class
Mm-hmm.
is designed for, and I totally agree that for the Masters of Divinity, they need this class.
Mhm.
But for us that aren't doing a thesis at the end,
Mhm.
but we're doing small 10-page research papers, except for Dr.
Yeah.
Gramacki, which is 28.
Yeah, we're not counting him.
Sorry,
Close the
most-
door, close the door.
His door's closed.
He's not
most of my
complaining.
classes. Dr.
Sean's
Gramacki-
not complaining.
Oh, no, Dr. Gramacki already knows this.
I know.
I told him.
Yeah, whereas most of my classes right now have all been like 5 or 6 to 10 pages.
Yeah.
That's
So
including.
this is a lot more.
This is way more in depth than what,
Hmm.
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And
But if
But
you want to
like
go
I said,
for a PhD, this class is really helpful.
yeah, I don't plan on it though.
Yeah,
I don't plan on it,
That's the way that I'm looking. I'm like, well, if I ever do want to do that,
Yeah.
this is
I'm thinking.
Good.
more
You all
along-
are bringing up an appropriate question that maybe I need to revise the course is really what I've been thinking for doing more of that kind
Yeah,
of
gearing it
research. Would
towards
that be more
smaller
helpful?
Stuff of like, I mean, because you're gearing it towards, and I get it, they need it for doctoral, for the dissertations,
For a
or
thesis.
the
Yep.
master
Yep.
thesis.
But
Some of
for
us
the
might
MABT, that's not where we need to be yet.
Yeah, we need like,
I'm thinking.
okay, go find 8 sources for like this class, okay? And
Hmm.
focus it more. Maybe you need 2 different classes, but that'd be kind of hard to do.
Yeah. No, I think I just need a little different tack.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not complaining. I do have a question, Dr. Jobs, if you could look at it real quick and make sure this is what you're wanting, or is this the aspect that you're looking for on this word study? The word studies. My screen's a
So
touch
your
screen. My
question,
touch is a touch screen, so you can slide up and down.
so your question is,
Is that what you're looking for? Or am I going,
So your
did I go the wrong way?
No.
Theological.
Did I basically, I went in and researched the word faithful.
Yeah.
It's only mentioned once in Habakkuk. Throughout all of Habakkuk, it's only mentioned once.
these are words, quotations from these 2 sources. and
Yep.
What's your words? Did you do any writing, talking yet?
No, I'm just copying what faith and, because that's the word, because you told me, you said, and maybe I misunderstood it. You said to go in here.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I use it because I paid money for this software.
You bet, use it.
Yeah. I paid. So like if I just click on faith, because that's the word you said to use, and I do a Bible word study, and then,
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
See, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Now,
that's a different translation.
for the things that I want to see in addition, that's a good thing to see that you're seeing it broadly. Come back to your document. Go back to your.
Yeah, you'll see, yeah, and then you'll
Oh,
still
my-
have bibliography. And the bibliography is.
But it's just included
Now,
in his.
Our purpose is you're doing great
Oh,
because
yeah.
you're using
See, for the
software,
last,
because that was really
what,
the
3,
issue.
4
Right.
years before
Now, if
this,
you're doing a word study,
I was using.
See, there's
here's my
all the
background,
my
here's the
previous
different
platform
words,
and say,
and where to come from, as I
Here.
see it's being, okay, now the concept of faith is cut and pasted, and this is from your second resource, right?
Yep, that's the theological side.
Okay.
I chose the theological side of the word. I mean, I can show you exactly where I got it from if I go.
But for a word study, then after, you're getting information, now you're gonna start talking about.
So I
as
still gotta
used by
write.
Moses in Deuteronomy, and now you're using your information that you found there, not just broadly. 'Cause you
Okay.
got some New Testament stuff in there, and I just wanted you to.
Yeah,
focus on the Old Testament.
yeah, it just happened to be, I just grabbed it just to throw it in there, just to show
But
you.
what you did is using your software to find information about a specific word. Is there a way, now you can go back to your software. Is there a way to use your software to focus down in a specific book? Does it have a filtering? So you've used those, and I'm thinking, see, these.
Those are all the different words. That's the different meanings
Yeah.
of it. And then if I go down here, a
Oh,
little bit,
yeah, there.
these are the pronunciations of the trustworthy.
But it would call up, here's where you could use your little windows to.
Oh,
call
that
up
was
other
this thing.
things.
This is where I got this one.
But a good tool would be one where you could find, if you're looking at the noun faithful, or and if you noun faithfulness,
There it is.
and see, okay, there you go, twat. Can you focus in on all the uses of that term by Moses in Deuteronomy?
Well, this is not in Deuteronomy.
Okay, now
This is
could that be another thing that now you're thinking of a word study, but you know how to get into the software, great, that's
Yeah.
all we needed to get into. So you're doing fine.
But you still want us to go through and you want me to go through and write all this
No.
for the assignment.
Well, when you say write all this, what do you mean?
Okay, so I got this, but I'll probably get rid of this because this is not what you're wanting for the assignment, for the Hebrew word. Now you want me to go in there and just,
You're
fill in a page
using
full
what
of
you
fluff.
found to now talk about, here's faithfulness, steadfastness, honesty, security, truth. All right, there's 5 different terms,
For
ways
one
of
word.
translating the word, one word.
for one word, for
Um,
there.
I've read through, I get a background feel for the Semitic languages. I see Old Testament. the term for sure is the New Testament. If you really want to go way into it, I'm not actually thinking of the New Testament use.
No, that's okay.
Translations of it. It's now come back and say, I think in Deuteronomy 6, he's really focusing on, he means.
Oh, so you mean something like, because what I've got, then, that was just me copying and pasting that.
Right.
What I actually went through and did was, LTW? No. Let me get rid of that part for a second here. It was LTW, I think. See, this gives me, so I'll pull this up instead. Yeah, like the word book.
Okay.
See, now inside
Now
here,
you gotta see all your tools.
yeah. So this is where I got part of that from, the Old Testament part. Boom.
Great. See, now you're looking at the uses of the term just in the Old Testament.
Right. So that's yep. There's that one.
Yep.
Faithfulness. Boom, 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 boom. And then there's New Testament stuff.
And
What I
if your
grabbed-
software will help you to see that term, Hebrew term, in Deuteronomy.
So are we focusing on Deuteronomy or are we focusing on Habakkuk?
Oh, wait, if it was Habakkuk, is that where you got it?
It was
Excuse me.
supposed to be Habakkuk.
I'm
So-
thinking Deuteronomy.
That's what I'm thinking. You
No,
keep saying Deuteronomy. I'm like,
no.
where is it supposed to be
Excuse
in
me.
Habakkuk? Because the way you
No,
explained it,
Habakkuk, you're right.
the way
other
you
one is
explained it, the way you explained it is we're supposed to find all the different references that they use Habakkuk in. The Habakkuk uses faith or
Habakkuk.
faithfulness.
Yep.
He doesn't use it one time
Cool.
throughout the whole entire thing.
That's the only time he uses that term or it's derivative.
That word. Yep. That word.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, then you'd still have to make a stab at what you think it is. And then
Yeah.
that's now backing up to your other usages of the
Yeah.
term by other
Well, see,
authors at similar times, similar context. That's
Exodus,
what I'd be thinking of for a word study.
Yeah. Exodus, Ezekiel, it was used in yada, which is not the word we're looking for, which
No.
we're actually looking for truth, dependability, faithfulness right there.
Mhm.
So the feminine side of it is used, blah, 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 Imena. And it was used in Genesis and Ecclesiastes. Yep. Ezekiel, Zechariah. So there's another, I mean, this is basically what you're wanting, this right here. Kind of.
Mhm.
For some reason, it's not copying that. There you go. You know, I can just grab that and, but that's not what you're wanting us to go through and do a page of fluff and duff.
I'm wanting you to use your software to try to find a term as it's used by an author. And you're saying it's only one time there. Okay, so then what would I do to try to resonate with the interpreters, the translators, English translators? Why do they use that English term?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And that's a word study, but that takes more time than I'm asking you all to do because we're not writing a paper.
Yeah.
I'm wanting you to use your software to find information about a term.
Well, I mean, that part of the assignment is done.
Good. Turn it in then.
Well, no, I mean, but you
Move
still
on.
want me to do the rest of it, the whole word study part. So that's what's confusing me is you're asking for two separate things on. Got it. I'll just knock it
No,
out.
Sean, don't take the time, There's a depth of working with the software that everybody could do. And so I'm trying to take people where they're at, those that are, the software's new.
Yeah.
Well,
one thing, I mean,
using with it and finding things in the software. Oh, wow, there's a dictionary right here.
see,
That's
Blue
all.
whatever gives you way more stuff on that in that aspect than Logos does. Well, unfortunately, my undergrad didn't teach us Blue Bible. They taught us, and there's a specific class, 2 classes for Logos.
Huh.
That's one of the requirements for our undergrad there is you had to buy, when your first semester as a freshman, you were getting Logos.
Yeah, we used to do that here at the seminary. We used to require everybody to buy this. And we found out that just didn't work.
And so, that's where I'm running into this problem is you're teaching off of Blue Bible.
Because I'm assuming people don't have logos.
Exactly.
And help me because I don't have logos. so.
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
So I've got to take something that's accessible that anybody can get into, which is
Right.
our online
But
tools.
see, now, if you started at your undergrad, in your undergrads, getting them used to logos and do like they do at Manhattan, I'm not saying you need to. I think Ozark's the same way.
Could be.
And they're making their undergrads get logos as part of the package because they're doing interp, basic interp, and advanced interp. If I showed you the workbook,
Oh, no.
there's actually an actual workbook in logos.
Well, you're further down the road than Sean.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
That's why it's confusing me when you're talking, I've done interp. And that's why I've got my Bible set up with my different colors for Greek and nouns and Hebrews and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
that's why I wrote in the assignment 2 pages. Because I envisioned doubled spaced, you'd say, show me the terms usage. That's a good paragraph there. And these different words that are translated. And then you could show me different languages, or rather those circles that I was talking, there's another one. And then the final one is, and I think.
Yeah, I'll work on it. It's just my time. I mean,
get you the end of a page
part of it's me and the evil one. I can't lie. The evil one is, he's not taking me away from God. I don't mean that. But he is causing distractions.
Oh,
When I did my undergrad, it was Monday through Friday. And
yeah,
I
I
loved
remember
it.
talking.
And I loved my undergrad. And I'm not saying I don't love my grad work either, because I do. I love Dr. Gramaki's, because that's what I came to school for, was to learn the Bible.
Mhm.
I didn't come to school to learn computer and all this other stuff, It just happened, logos happened to be one of those tools that I was given and introduced to that I clung to.
Yeah,
And I love logos because this helped me write every sermon that I've ever done.
cool.
And it's just.
I have a student that's using the sermon writing module in Logos.
It is a phenomenal.
And the template that I have for laying out a sermon outline doesn't quite match. And I've said, well, could you add? So he's trying to learn how to adapt it.
Did I show you mine?
Is it a sermon writer module or whatever it's called?
It's my documents. I meant to send it to Dr. Gramacki and I'll find it by the next break, sir. Yeah, I've got it. It's just trying to think of where.
Now, you had to modify a template outline for you, right? Is that what it has in it? And then you could load in not only the text, but type in your own outline points. And it puts in illustrations and quotes and all the rest.
Oh, no. This is, Dr. Henry, Dr. York, all set down. And
It's a preaching manual of some form.
it is.
Yeah, from Dr. York's from Southern.
Interpretation workbook. No, that's my interp workbook. That's not what I want. Analytics, sermon 1. Right one. Right to homiletics. This is mine for right here. This is one of them. This is the homiletics workbook. This is mine from my sermon on
This is a template, built off of a template.
writing the sermon, boom, boom, boom. Expository, exegetical. That's what it is. And then decide how to blah, blah, blah. And then there's my
So there's your outline, now here's your manuscript.
Uh-huh.
Cool.
That's that. Then the exegetical part of it.
Ah. And that's part of all, so you did your exegetical study and then you could highlight things to take into your outline? Is that what it is?
Here you go. Here's the interpret. Here you go. This is the interpretation. They call it interp or exegetical, same thing.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. And then here you go. 7 steps for biblical interpretation. Then there's the observations. There's all the observations. Boom. Like reflect on your observations about the whole book of literary work. And it just goes on. There's like, and then historical culture analysis. And then, yeah, look for this information, you know.
So that's
historical
basic
factors.
things for you to think through when you put together a sermon.
But I have this without all the red.
Yes, yeah. You could turn off those.
Oh, no, I have it. I have a blank one somewhere without all the red in it. This is my intern for,
From the class.
yeah, this is mine from, Hebrews. The book of Hebrews, 12:5-11.
Cool.
I did a whole preaching series
Yeah, laid it out. Yeah.
on Hebrews, which was a nightmare. Have you ever tried preaching on Hebrews? It is not even.
Yeah, so it has to become, it's not that it's gonna be big. Oh, yeah, it's gonna be there. Yeah. That's not the life rock. The class a year ago.
Yeah, it's only Monday. But they were gone Monday.
So you have to watch it online, but you still, you get credit for B, or is there not? You know those points?
No, you know how it is.
Yeah.
Every class she has to do
Yeah.
the three
Yeah.
things.
So that counts, okay.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking
Credit for it.
attendance wise, yeah, you don't lose your points.
Right.
But that's something I'm like, yeah, you're not technically missing.
No, because it wasn't a scheduled day.
That's weird.
Your day, sir. I told you, just because I'm at the class doesn't mean I'm not gonna.
Principal alone says I have to be.
Yeah. This is what dissertation or thesis sister, thesis next. You and Jack, you and Jack. You guys are years for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Me, sure.
No.
Yeah.
And then
You're taking one class, aren't you?
Yeah.
This semester, see?
Yeah.
That's what I should have
Well,
done.
because, yeah, and the reason why I'm only taking one class here is because I'm taking Greek, not here. Yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, I'm every week about 2 hours with the Greek in the morning.
He's not grading you like.
Oh, no, he is.
Oh, is he really?
Mhm.
Okay, okay. So you're
I have
actually, are you getting credit
I have
for
a
it?
full 80-page syllabus from the master seminary. That's where he used to teach, and he uses his exact same syllabus. I take quizzes every week. I get graded on them.
Really?
Full on.
So are you getting credit for it or?
Oh, no. Mm-mm. No, no college credit, but it also doesn't cost anything.
That's true.
As he said, whenever I get done with the class, I will be able to take an entrance exam to skip the first year of Greek.
Yeah.
So I won't have to do it because I'll be able to translate. Typically, the entrance exam is if you can translate the book of 1 John. You translate it all the way through from Greek to English.
Really?
And then they say, okay, you know enough of the language to where you don't have to take the basic grammar classes. You can go straight to Greek exegesis. So I skipped 2 classes here, which is good. So yeah, I
So
don't
you have to
technically
really
get
translate
credit.
from memory?
No. Just they give you a Greek New Testament
Uh,
and translate 1 John. Yeah, with no help. Just there it is in Greek, translated to English.
So you gotta know, you gotta know our English words. Like, I mean, what I mean is like, that's one in English.
Yeah, you have to really know both languages really well.
Wow. No, see, I couldn't do it. I don't have the memory for it.
There's a lot there. The good news is in Greek, a lot of the words are like stems, and then they add things at the beginning and the end to change the meaning, but the root is still there. So if it means like I come or I go, And then at the beginning, it will have like an F, which means go out. So I go so there, but that means out. So it's like, okay, I go out. And then the ending will have a thing saying if it's, individual, first person, second person, third person, singular, plural, and it will tell you, I am going out, I was going out, like different things. So it's just one word, but it means like 15 different things. So as long as you know the one root word and you know the endings, because the endings are always the same, no matter what the root word is. So it helps. But it's
To take and rewrite, what, you said First John?
Yeah.
First John's not that, First John's, that's a.
It's not that big, yeah. Yeah, like for an example, like on the biblical Greek, it has like,
It was great though. It was a blessing.
Oh, you should
1486.
know cheating.
oh, no. Yeah, this is
This is for group of 10. You knew we were talking to a lot of
But
people.
no, yeah, whenever I get done.
But it was,
Yeah.
So you know, Old Testament.
I got somebody up at Lansing. I gotta get with them. I'm gonna try to get up there. I'm trying to get in. I've never been in a federal facility. So I'd be kind of cool, but
Because five.
I definitely wanted to share.
Not five even, but yeah, five,
Philemon, yeah, is one of the Jude too.
and
Yeah,
Titus
2 pages.
is not even a page. I mean, it's only one page.
Yeah.
And
So
you
you're
get to
getting
make
2
2
pages
pages.
out of that,
There's
yeah.
no way. I mean,
The Old Testament won't be hard.
I've used 3 different commentaries
Oh, to try to
to
expand
get
on.
the outlines and just building off of the outlines on it. The only thing else I can do now is probably take the book,
Yeah.
copy it over there, and just put my outline, break it up into sections that way.
Yeah, so the book here was actually pretty good.
I'm telling you,
Daniel,
just
that
be
Feinberg.
ready.
Feinberg.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Are you, I have a bunch of Ironside ones.
I got-
All right, hopefully
Yeah.
are seeing this online. Doing correctly.
Him and Moo, I got Moo. Oh, yeah, I got along with Moo too. He's.
Let's talk about revising style and ethics. Just finishing that up with the section from that book that I've been using. Readers will accept our claims in our essays, research essays, if they understand our arguments. But they won't understand our arguments if they don't understand our sentences. All right, so we're talking at a much a writing level tonight, just to put that into our thinking. And that applies at any kind of writing that we do. Once we get the argument the way it should sound and or be organized, then come back to the mechanics of your essay to make sure your sentences read as the complexity of your idea allows. So we're having the lion's share of the course done, and now we come back into that drafting and writing phase, rewriting phase, I guess I should say it that way. How to judge if what you've written enables the readers to get out of it what you intend them to get out of it. It's another question that we're really trying to answer. Probably sounds too good to you, but will it sound the same to them? Sounds good to you is what you're saying as you look at your writing. To ensure that your sentences will be as clear to them as they are to you, you need a way to identify difficult sentences even when they seem fine to you. I don't know if you've had many people critique your writing and they come back and say, what? And I'm thinking of my wife. She just doesn't, things make sense to me. So why do they make sense to you? Type thing. And some of us are working a little bit more with it than others. A number of years ago, my older brother was a college professor, taught English his whole life. When I first came to Calvary, they asked me to teach the grammar classes at the college. And I asked Jack, I said, what's a good text that he wrote his own text. And so he used it and I used his text a little bit, but it was more than I needed to do. It wasn't in English. All right, he wrote a handbook, had a lot of things in it. So I used it, but he said, pick up this book by Martha Clone. And I was new to the teaching here. And this is further than what we needed in the composition classes, but sort of what we needed doing a 16-week class. All right, so the title, I'm flashing it around, Rhetorical Grammar. It's not just grammar, it's not just in English, it's how what I write communicates well. That's really what she put together, and a lot of good advice here. So I used this for a number of years, found out it was deeper than what the students really needed. Those that came had good skill with writing. Great, the Lord bless you and keep you, and you go on and do college. And then there was a group that they needed a lot of help, and this is deeper than what they needed. So I went back to something a little bit more shallow. But what we're talking about here is it would be something like this, where you grammatical choices, rhetorical effects, how I write a sentence. One of the typical things we write, for example, there are a lot of people. What I just used is the subject. Is there a subject? There are. Oh, it's so soft and squishy. Throw it out. Don't use it. Rather put the actual noun up there. So there are lots of, what did I say lots of? Well, the nouns I got there, why not throw that up to the front? That's just one of the things she was talking about there as we were dealing with, as well as the use of different parts of speech. We're not going to get down in that detail, but if you want to take it a little further, find a resource like that. That'll help you. Unfortunately, this book is too expensive. Why textbooks? You go out and try to buy this thing. What would you think? $20 book. It's $50, $60, I think is what they're asking for. All right. That didn't get recorded, did it? I'm critiquing. Yeah. Judging style is what I'm going to talk about first here. So what are we talking about? If you read an article in the style of one of these examples, how would you feel? So let me read a couple examples here. And let me come back. I want to make sure I've introduced what we're doing well. We're just going to spend 45 minutes here at the most, maybe on talking about this, maybe a little less. To challenge you when you write, not only write and do everything else that we've talked about well, where you research well and you argue well, and you lay it out with a logical argument, but now come back and see how it reads to make sure it's effective for the communication. So here's some examples. Conventional management practice assumes that interaction and collaboration enhances organizational performance by improving employee creativity and productivity. But unless collaboration is punctuated by isolation, and unless workspace configurations provide isolation opportunities, erosion rather than enhancement of organizational effectiveness may result. How do you feel?
Perplexed.
Perplexed, because it communicates, but what kind of level of communication is it coming across? Do you want something more technical, a little dense? I don't know what words you would want to use. Let's talk about it a different way. Here's the same topic. Managers want the people who work for them to interact and collaborate. When they do this, they become more creative and productive. The organization then performs better. But people also need opportunities to work alone, and workplaces need to provide these opportunities. Otherwise, the organization may become less effective. How's that read?
I feel like that was more clear.
Well, a lot more clear.
To me,
Sentences are shorter. They aren't as dense, difficult to read. I don't know if it felt choppy, but notice that in here they made a complex sentence. They've got two, independent clauses put together. You want to have some variety when you're writing. I don't know what you learned way back when you're doing a 5-sentence paragraph, introduction, conclusion, sentences, and in the middle you're talking about your points, or you can move things around in a typical paragraph there. What kind of variety of sentences? What do you do with the subjects and verbs? Again, I don't know what you all learned and thought and what your styles are. This is a little simpler than the first one. All right, what about this one? Same thing. Managers conveniently assume that when employees interact and collaborate, they become more creative and productive, thus leading the whole organization to perform better. Ooh, that's a little bit more complex sentence. Is it too dense though? No. But unless employees also have opportunities to work alone, that's a dependent clause. And unless workspaces are configured to provide them, oh wow, another dependent clause, the organization may become less rather than more effective. And there's the main clause, right? So that's a little bit more complex reading. So we're talking about style and how do you judge that and how does it feel? One of the worst problems in academic writing is that too many researchers want to sound like number one. Complex, weighty, significant. Heavy thinking demands heavy writing, right? Well, you all know that there's some things that we read here, that you've read here in seminary. You go, I almost got to stop on every word at times. Now, that's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about, do the ideas get communicated well? It doesn't mean heavy. They're dense thoughts, difficult concepts. We're not talking about dumbing it down, just using simple words. You got to use the complex words. Preaching, you preach. I don't know what kind of feedback you've had. One person at one church came up to me and gave me a list. All right, these are all the 4-syllable words you used and more. First time he came up, I go, he was a teacher. And I said, yeah. So he said, did you want to use that many big a word? What are you saying? I don't remember exactly what he was saying. I had another guy that came up and says, I hate it when you use the big words or theological terms. Oh, should I not use them? And then you get the others say, I love it when you use theological terms, as long as you define what you're using. And that was the learning point. Oh, it isn't. And the first guy was not saying, don't use big words. Just help me understand what they are. Understand your audience, purpose, but then help us. So, all right. So it not avoiding just the big words and the dense things is not what we're talking about. At the other end of the spectrum are those who try to avoid all complex writing. They lose their readers. What we're wanting to think about is, am I writing needlessly academically or confusedly so? So principles of clear writing. Now, this is what this one document was saying. Things we need to think of. Here's so I'm just going to throw out what I found and what they were saying here. And I go, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm regurgitating their encouragement. When you're evaluating sentences as a writer and you don't know you're reading, a good technique is to look at your first 6 or 7 words of a sentence, look at the last 4 or 5. Because and I'm going to build the thoughts on what we do in those parts of the sentence. Also think of terms, coming back to grammar again, a simple subject, the whole subject, what's a verb, what's a noun? All right, typical things we talk about, different kinds of clauses, independent, dependent clauses, restrictive, non-restrictive clauses, what's serving as the noun, what's in the subject position, but what's really the subject. All right, that just grammatical terms that you were going to be thinking of. This isn't real complex. Before I go on there. Yeah, let me go into this one, subject and characters. When we write a sentence, that which is in the subject position, is it always the agent doing the action? No. In a passive sentence, it's not. Rules were broken. So do the rules break themselves? Subject, position, verb? No. All right, so we do different things with a sentence. But you have to look at what's in the subject slot, and then you have to look at what is it in the sentence that's doing the action. All right, active, passive sentences. All right, you're thinking of those things as well. The first principle, readers will judge your sentences to be clear and readable to the degree that you can make their subjects name the characters in your story. Sentences. Name the subject. The subjects name the characters in your story, meaning you're getting them to follow a plot line, if we could use those terms of story. Yeah, follow our thinking. when you do this, very simple principle. What he's saying, make your subjects short, specific, and concrete. Now, sometimes we're going to be thinking character, sometimes we're going to think subject. Usually we start with subject. The subject does the verbal action. But sometimes it's a character in the sentence that does the action. So I want to distinguish between the two, and I want to make sure that my subject is short, specific, and concrete. All right, keep that down. Verbs, nouns, and actions. There's some differences, and I mentioned just a couple differences, but I mentioned other differences between clear and unclear writing is in the way the writer expresses the crucial actions in the story. So not only the subjects, but the difference between good writing, bad writing is what they're saying here, is what I'm trying to capture, is the use of verbs or verbs as nouns. Okay, remember we introduced verbals? So a second principle, the first one is make your subject clear, specific, concrete. Principle number 2, express crucial actions in or with verbs. A couple of things we throw out when we think of clear writing. Usually it's good to eliminate as many prepositional phrases as you can. Gets more clarity, doesn't garbage up the word, the subject, or the verb. So there's another thing to put in the back of your mind. If you want to have clear writing, try eliminating some of the prepositional phrases. But there are some prepositional phrases that are so important. The man hit the woman. The man in the car hit the woman. Oh, to see that action, I've got to have in the car there. All right, so I'm not saying eliminate them all, but man in the car drinking a Coke and whistling Dixie. Verbs, nouns, and actions. Here's an example. Locke, and he's the philosopher, frequently repeated himself because he did not trust the power of words to name things accurately. What's the subject? Power of words. Who's doing the action? What's the action of the main clause? Locke, an adverb there, frequently repeated himself. So I've underlined the verb there. Because, and now I've got a dependent clause, he did not trust the power of words to name things accurately, and the infinitive there at the end. Who's doing the trusting? Oh, there's clarity because it's the same subject. Notice how it's following along and it's not mudding with introducing other subjects, which sometimes in our writing we confuse it. Now let's write it a different way. The reason for Locke's frequent repetition lies in his distrust of the accuracy of the naming power of words. Where's the subject in that sentence? Isn't the word, the subject really is the reason, when you have a prepositional phrase, the reason lies in it. Notice how you've got a different emphasis, different action, different subject there going on. Now, it sounds like you're wondering, how in the world does this apply to anything? As you're reading through a sentence, you're wanting to follow who's doing the action throughout this section, following the story. And when I put that in the subject position that I want to emphasize, then the reader will pick that up, is what you're talking about. Don't overcomplicate your sentences. Let's do another example, I think. If rainforests are stripped to serve, and I'm just highlighting verbs and verbals there, stripped to serve short-term economic interests, the Earth's biosphere may be damaged. What's the subject of the main clause? Biosphere, right? The Earth's biosphere, that's Earth is an adjective. The Earth's biosphere may be damaged if, and now we have a dependent clause, if rainforests are stripped. So the question is, rainforests, biosphere, are we staying close maybe damage strips, so the verbs, all right, there's clarity there. Now let's do another one. The stripping of the rainforest in the service of short-term economic interests could result in damage to the Earth's biosphere. What's the subject? That's not as clear because I've changed this verb, not a verbal, the stripping. Now there's for speech we talk about. It's a verbal. It's a participle. No, it's a gerund. Excuse me. The stripping could result in. So I moved away from biosphere and I buried it, down there. All right, I just try to get an example of what am I wanting to emphasize? Clarity of subject, clarity of verb, and the cohesion between the two. Now we're going to come back to the 6 or 7 words at the beginning and the end. So hang on to that. Verbs. Verb nouns. Second principle of clarity, the first one is subject, express crucial actions in with verbs. Diagnosing your sentences though, underline the first 6 or 7 words of every clause. Now, it could be dependent, independent, whether main or subordinate, and perform 2 tests. Are the underlying subjects concrete subjects, meaning not abstractions? And do the underlying words name specific actions, not general ones like have, make, the to be verbs? That's what I ask. Find the characters you want to tell the story, another thing to do, and find what those characters are doing. Now, I come back to that comment I had earlier. There's subjects and then there's characters. The character can be in the subject position, but sometimes I move it around and it's not. All right, that's something to keep in mind. But I'm looking for clarity of making sure I'm keeping the focus on, and I'm going to use the word character here, not just subject, and in the action. If their actions are in nouns, such as verbals, change them to verbs. All right, so there's some last one. Clear clauses with your main characters. Create clauses with main characters as subjects and their actions as verbs. One more thing to add in. If I can get to my right, these slides don't have a number. Where am I at? Excuse me for a second. I have several slides in my file here that look exactly the same to me. Revising. Oh, okay, that's where we're at. All right, so we're talking about clarity of subject, clarity of a verb, and then thinking about the character, that which should be doing the action or action done to it that we want to emphasize. We diagnose by looking at the opening and closing words of our sentences to look for subjects, and then for actions, and then find the characters and the doing and the clause. Who or what can be a character? Let's keep that going. Readers prefer sentences whose subjects are short, specific, and concrete. Okay, that's that principle. Avoid excessive abstraction, but can we use abstraction? In our theological papers, we're going to use a lot of abstraction. We're not suggesting that every abstract noun should be changed into a verb. Sometimes abstraction is best, but avoid abstractions we don't need. And the skill to gain in knowing when you need or which you don't comes with practice and criticism from others. So let's talk about the next one. It would be creating main characters in your writing. If your sentences are readable, your characters will be the subjects of verbs, meaning in the subject position. But they're not necessarily. Sometimes as we rewrite our sentences, it's still obvious the subject we're talking about, character now I'm going to use, but it's in another place in the sentence. So I want to make my character be seen. Most stories have several characters, anyone who can turn into a main character. So which do you emphasize? It depends on whom you want your readers to think the story, your argument is about as you're going through sentences and paragraphs. As you revise sentences, put characters and subjects and actions and verbs when you can, but be sure the character is your central character, if only for that sentence. So we're principles, clear subjects, clear verbs. A third one to add in here, old before new, and I'm building this all together. The principle is almost more important than the first two. Does the opening of the sentence, and we could add in the paragraph as well, but I know there's some diversity in where the main sentence, the topic sentences of a paragraph can go. It doesn't have to be the first sentence, but for sure in a sentence level, the opening of the sentence should flow from the previous sentence. So the question is, where do I introduce new things in a sentence, in a paragraph? Does the opening of the sentence seem to flow from the previous? Look at the first 6 or 7 words. Readers follow a story most easily if they can begin each sentence with a character, idea that's familiar to them. What did I just say? If I've introduced in one sentence a character in the subject position and talked about it, now I can come and talk about it, that character out of the subject position. It's familiar to them already, rather than introducing something new. From the principle of reading, we can infer principles of diagnosis and revision here. So let me add into it. Add those first few words. What did you say? Underline the first 6 or 7 words are these words that your readers will find familiar and easy to understand, and usually words used before. The first 6 or 7 words. So think of a sentence. If at the beginning of the sentence I've talked about something they've already heard, it's going to be easier to follow the flow of the sentence. That's really what I'm talking about. If not, revise it. And to revise your sentences, make the first 6 or 7 words refer to familiar information, usually something you've mentioned before, typically your main characters, which is not always what's in the subject position, but it's what is you're talking about and tracking with action. And put at the ends of sentence information that your readers will find unpredictable or complex and therefore harder to understand. If you hear a basic thought, so I look at my sentences, make the beginning of the sentence easy to grasp, and the last part, as I'm explaining, usually think of subject and verb. Now I'm putting the complexity about that which I've introduced, but it's already in the reader's mind. Oh, I'm somewhat familiar, and now I'm introducing something that's a little bit less familiar to them. The old new principle. Choosing between the active and passive voice. Now again, we're talking about subjects, characters. What'd you hear when you're back in English? Avoid the use of the passive voice. Use active verbs. But that practice make a sentence less clear at times. So here I'm just arguing for times when we can use a passive. Rather than worry about active and passive, ask a simpler question. Do my sentences begin with a familiar information, preferably a main character? Here's an example. Eye movements were measured at 1/10 of a second intervals. It's a passive sentence. But what's the focus, the character? Eye movements. Well, who did the measurement? We don't know. Some machine. Here's an active sentence of the same. We measured eye movements at 1/10 of the second there intervals. But now it's shifted the attention away from the eye movements to us. It's a little subtle thing. Sometimes passive helps, but we're doing it because we're trying to keep our focus on that study of eye movements. Fourth principle, complexity last. All right, we just said it. We focused on how clauses begin, how they end. If familiar, the old before the new, clear, specific and concrete for verbs and actions. But now let's look at the sentence itself. We said the first 6 or 7 sentences, 6 or 7 words should be something familiar. The end can be more complex. If familiar information goes first, the newest, most complex information goes last. So that's where you want to introduce a new concept. And then you've introduced it, now you can take it on. So that's what we're talking about, our sentences flow. Introducing technical terms. Let me back up before that. The principle is particularly important in 3 contexts: when you introduce a new technical term, when you present a unit of information that's long and complex, when you introduce a concept that you intend to develop in what follows. So the principle, familiar information goes first, the newest, most complex information goes last, meaning they haven't been introduced to it. So I'm going to put it at the end of the sentence. And it's when I'm introducing technical terms that are new to your readers. Construct your sentences so the terms appear in the last few words of that sentence. They've started with familiar. Great. You've given their mind a context to think about that they can understand. And now you're relating it to something new. Introducing complex information, same thing that you do at the end. Put complex bundles of ideas that require long phrases or clauses at the end of a sentence, never at the beginning. Don't begin your sentences with complexity. Save it for the end. Unfortunately, this may not be easy to do because you may be so familiar with your ideas, you don't distinguish what's not that familiar and is more complex for your readers. So you got to get some input. And introducing what follows. When you start a paragraph, put the key terms that appear in the rest of the paragraph at the end of the first or second sentence. So then they're going to be familiar with them as you go through. So once you've checked the first 6 or 7 words of a sentence, check the last 5 or 6. If those words are not the most important, complex, or weighty, revise so that they are. Look especially at the ends of sentences to introduce paragraphs or even sections. All right. I've thrown out a bunch of grammatical thinking. I encourage you, as you want to increase your writing, to get some more help. This is all we're going to talk about when it comes to grammar. But have people evaluate your writing for complexity and just these principles. I want to be very concrete, specific, and clear about my subject's characters, different concepts, but they're the same, and then the actions that are going on, and the principle old before the new. As you think of paragraphs and sentences, that'll work. A final section on spit and polish, is what I entitled this. Other principles to concern in sentence style: sentence length, the choice of words, the concision that you're using, conciseness. We've been talking about that somewhat, but some of you are already comfortable with the complexity of your sentences and the variety of your sentences, so get some help with that. Our tutors can give you a feel, if that's an area in which you might struggle. But these are dealt with in all kinds of papers, not just what we're doing here for academic writing. Have people check your grammar, your spelling, your punctuation, your use of numbers, your Turabian formatting. Again, our tutors over at the Clark Academic Center will really help out. A couple things that I found that I want to just highlight. When you're doing a series, Jesus Christ died for people. I'm just making it up at the top of my head. People's dogs and cats. No, that doesn't work. I don't mean that kind of parallel. People, sinners, and The neighbor down the street. It's not a good example. I don't have one written down. When I'm thinking of parallelism, they should be the same kinds of words in a series. If I'm using nouns, nouns. If I'm using verbs, verbs. If I'm using prepositional phrases, now the thing with prepositional phrases, you could have a preposition to in front of the first one, and it's implied by the other two, so you got to be careful with that. But where we get in trouble is we interject a phrase or a grammatical structure that isn't the same as the other elements of the series. That's one thing that I see quite often people use. When you're thinking of phrases or clauses even, there's a difference between restrictive, and we're talking about punctuation, and non-restrictive. That ring a bell with anybody? What's a restrictive and non-restrictive clause? It's modifying, it's a prepositional phrase, it's an adjective. It's usually, it's usually that we run an issue when we're thinking of commas or parenthesis or em dashes, how to set off the material. Is the modifying material to that noun or that noun phrase, is it necessary to understand that noun? Well, then it's restrictive. If not, then it's non-restrictive. So the question I always have is when I have these little phrases in the middle of sentences, do I need to put a comma to separate it off? If it's non-restrictive, you separate it off. And that's where the most separation is with a parenthesis. Commas are good. The strongest separation where you're actually focusing on that is with an em dash. So think that through when you're writing, when to emphasize or not emphasize. Dashes, which brings that up. Do you all know the difference between the different dashes we talk about in our style guide? When you're doing a hyphenated word, self-control. Now, there are some words that have changed. We've taken the hyphen out. Word will say something, so maybe this is one of those words that's out. But if it's a hyphenated word, it's just a dash on your computer, right? If you're doing a series of numbers, it's Hezekiah 12 verses 14 through 26. How do you make that? You put 2 hyphens. Now, there are ways with your computer to actually do it, but a series is set off by 2 dashes. It's a bigger, you can visually see it.
So I've been doing it wrong the whole time. I've only put 1 dash between 14 and 26.
Should do 2. That's what our style guide says to do.
It should, and it goes into 1, right? It's just long.
It will,
It automatically does that.
depends on the software.
Okay.
If you're typing in Word and you type this, it'll change it to an em dash. It'll put 3. You don't want that.
Okay.
The way to get it to, you type the 14, put a space, put the 2 dashes, put the space, 26. So you've got a space there.
Oh, wow.
And
then it will,
when you get past the 6,
Yep.
it'll change it to a 1 line.
Yep.
But then you've got to get rid of the spots, the dots.
Yeah.
So for the last 4 years, I've been doing it totally wrong, but I'm doing it wrong right now.
Technically, now we're talking about, your professor, I'm just reading it. Hey, you
I
got the
put
right
1
accuracy.
dash 44.
Mhm.
And when I type it out, I put 1 dash 44, no space. I'm sorry, I don't mean to.
Yeah. But no, with my undergraduate, I did it just a single dash, and that was acceptable. Here,
Yeah.
it's 2. So yeah, I think different schools.
And I'm
But-
just describing what we have in our style guide.
Got
Yeah.
it. Now I
Because I noticed that
I-
during the last.
Some professors, forget it, get it done. But others, and we're thinking of publishing down the road, and hopefully you have an editor to clear up all that for you. Headache. Em dash. An em dash is used when you're wanting to set off that material. It could be at the end of a sentence, it could be like a scare quote comment. He was the Messiah. Jesus. Oh, I could use an em dash there, which is 3 dashes. And when you type the word, no space, 3 dashes, no space, type it, and after that word Jesus, the next thing will change it all into one line, is what Word will do. So you got to play with that one as to how to figure out to get it to go from 3 dashes and it looks like just one long line. So that's called an M dash, E-M. And Turabian describes these too, but this is our convention. Another thing that comes up in writing papers that, I'm throwing a bunch of stuff out, but hopefully you'll hear a little bit. The difference between a colon, I do it too big. A colon and a semicolon. Everybody knows the difference between that, right? Well, the colon has a lot more uses than the semicolon. So the semicolon is easier. I have 2 independent clauses on either side, but they are closely connected in thought. Or I use a semicolon in a series that has punctuation inside of it. And I set off the series. Even if it's a sentence, I set off a series, but I want to highlight. So this clause here has a comma or a couple in the, at least one comma. It's got to be, well, then I've got to use a semicolon. But a semicolon is more limited in its use. A colon is before a series. It could be before a quote. It could be before a highlighted material. It's fleshing out. What this says is you got to read the rest to fully understand what I've said. Now, if you're using this before a series, you have to have the direct object named before the series, meaning these things are all that. I want you to see the following, and the word the following, there's it's a gerund being used there, a noun. Colon, well, what's the following? A, B, C, D. I can't just say, I want you to see colon. That's wrong. Get rid of the colon and just write your sentence. I want you to see, and then give me the series. But if you're wanting to highlight the series, you've got to set it off, but you got to put a direct object before it, and the direct object tells you what you're going to, well, see that a little bit. That's one where I see a lot of people bringing a little confusion there. Commas, oh wow. Lots of use of the commas. Opening participial phrases, prepositional phrases, excuse me, subordinate clauses that open a sentence. Rule of thumb with prepositional phrases that open a sentence, if there are in the house by the car, that's 4 words, 2 prepositional phrases. Rough rule of thumb is put a comma with 4 or more words in a prepositional phrase or series of phrases. You're going to see a lot of variety with commas where people use them. The good rule of thumb with a comma is, where would I take a breath? Because that's really what it started as. As you're reading the sentence through it just sounds like that's probably a place you'd put a comma, whether it's grammatically correct or not. There's another question. Another thing I see a lot of people having trouble with is the ending punctuation, period. Well, what if I've got a question and a quotation mark? It's really a quotation in a sentence. All right, we run into different things there. Ending punctuation, if it's a question mark, but it's there, I'd go with that. Just the question mark and leave it there. But the quotations then show the limits of the quote, even though it's in an independent clause. It's a quote within a quote.
How about if you were actually quoting from the Bible? So you see a lot of that, because you still have to have the parentheses with the quote on there. You still want to put a period after that, correct?
Yeah, it depends on what you're asking. If within the quote is a question mark, I end with that.
Yeah, I ended.
But I've not ended the sentence yet.
Well, I have it. Let's say I've ended the sentence, but I'm also, I still have. Okay, I've got. So you'll take that out, and you're going to put the question mark at the end of the.
Depends on where the question mark goes.
Well, I'm
if
saying
the question's in the quote,
mark,
keep it in the quote.
It's in the quote.
The quote ends before my parenthetical.
Correct.
1 John.
Correct.
2:2.
Right. Now, would
Period.
That's why I said, yeah, and you,
Yep.
you still have the quote, you still have the question mark though, inside. the-
If that's part of the quote, it goes there, but I still end it.
Yeah,
because
that's
what
what
the
you see
sentence
most
is.
often. Somebody was asking me
Yeah,
that.
that's,
I showed them like that.
that's what we asked. Now you're gonna see books that are written where they don't do that. Here at Calvary, we want the period at the end. And direct. And if the sentence here has ending punctuation, you don't use it. I mean, it's got a period there. You don't use the period there, you put it back there. Yeah. One of those. Multiple. What am I looking for? I gotta go to reading. I got a reference to 2112.
Very interesting questions.
There's a lot more information is what I'm saying here in trading. I'm just not asking you about. Multiple punctuation marks. Oh, yes. So they have, information about how to do multiple punctuation points and the order of punctuation 21, 1 or 12, 2. So the order of punctuation marks, we'll talk about more, just the things we've been saying there. Questions, comments, anybody? Something else you've run into the writing phase? Okay, just a final thing to encourage us, we definitely deal with what scripture says, the ethics of research. Doing and recording research is a social activity. So we started thinking of way back at the beginning between you and the sources, you and your readers. We have a responsibility to our readers and to those that we're sourcing, which moves us beyond mere technique to thinking about the ethics. So the broad concepts of ethics are the forging of bonds that create a community, are because of our ethical, our biblical morality, whatever you want to call it here, but that's what we're talking about. The moral choices we face when we act in that community are the ethics. But for us, our epistemology is the word of God, so that's where it's coming out of. That's what we honor all the way through. Ethical comes from the Greek term ethos, either a community's shared customs or an individual's character. And as we've been talking about the things that a reader anticipates, that's part of it. We said at ethos, that we're a reliable researcher. We give them accurate information where to find the source, as well as we speak with honesty and appropriate hedging at times. Research challenges us to define our ethical principles, and we know it all comes from God's word, but the source that I've been using for this extra material, here's some suggestions they have. The ethical researcher doesn't plagiarize or claim credit for the results of others, doesn't misreport sources, invent data, fake results, doesn't submit data whose accuracy they don't trust, unless we say, I don't trust this data. Hamas, 40,000 people died yesterday in the tunnels. I'll wait to see the final data. They don't conceal objections that they cannot rebut, meaning you're honest. Dr. Vlock was at the conference and talked to him about, see if he let me print his, or he made a presentation there about the hermeneutics of non-dispensationalists, is the title. And he had his paper there online. So I said, could I print that in Iowa? And he first said, yeah, well, let me think on it. And he came back. Evidently, he's in a writing process. Michael Vlock, he's done at Shepherd Seminary. His area is hermeneutics. So anyway, in his book on the use of the Old Testament and the New, have you seen that yet? He deals with the 350 direct quotes, allusions to the Old Testament. And if I remember right, I don't remember the number, he says out of those 350, 97% I can say are a literal fulfillment in the New Testament. Now, but there's even there's a gradation. There's a percentage, definitely, yes. But then there's that 3%, 4%, and he acknowledges in the book, he says, yeah, those are the tough ones. But because of the preponderance of the quotations, I think we should take Old Testament quotes as being a literal fulfillment, and not just an allusion or an allegorical. All right, so he's doing this. He's definitely knowing where people would talk against him. And they don't caricature or distort opposing views or opposing people. And they don't destroy data or conceal sources important for others to follow. That's what they suggest. But more important than just do nots of ethical issues are the times that we often ask, what should I do now in this research situation? So let me bring in some scriptural situations are multitude, varied, and they dependent on the context to some extent. Therefore, in the context of the course and the encouragement to see research as entering a community, we have invitations in scripture. When you create, however briefly, a community of shared understanding and interest, you set a standard for your work higher than you could set for yourself alone. Colossians 2:23. You have that memorized. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. So there's a motive that we have. When you explain to others why your research should change their understanding and beliefs, you have to examine not only our own understanding and interests, but our responsibility to them if you convince them to change their opinion. 1 Corinthians 2. In my speech and my message, here's Paul talking about his own ministry. My speech and my message were not in persuasive words of wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power, so that your faith might not rest in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. It's ultimately where we go. And when we acknowledge our readers' alternative views, including their strongest objections and reservations, you move closer, not just to more reliable knowledge, better understanding, or sounder beliefs, but to honoring the dignity and human needs of your readers. I think in 1 Peter 3:15, it's interesting that Andy Woods, I don't know if you're familiar with him, he's the president of Schaeffer Seminary in Houston, and he made the first presentation on Monday morning, 8:30, after the introductions. He gets up and he talks about the, now I get it confused because it's somewhat new to my thinking. Yeah, I've heard of it, but it's not a mid-trib. He was critiquing I've got to write it, I got to draw it so you can see it. You know, when you think of the rapture relative to the tribulation, the question is, we are pre-trib.
Is that the period between there and then the actual tribulation?
Pardon?
Is it the period between the rapture and the actual?
No, he wasn't talking about that. You know, we're premillennial or pre-tribulational. There's the millennium. There are people that are mid-trib. The rapture's at the midpoint of the tribulation. Right. Then there are people that are pre-wrath rapturous. And they basically place it in the second half of the tribulation. And so he was critiquing that, saying that's not legitimate. And the very first person, you know, they do the presentation, about 45-minute reading his paper, adding a little bit more. First guy to get up, the Q&A says, you have never, and he's one of these pre-wrath people, and he says, I've asked you all to come and debate me, and you go, whoa, we're all sitting there going, where did this guy come from? And they dealt with him graciously, and I think he, you know, didn't not necessarily like what we were saying, but you got to deal with people that are opposing, is what I'm thinking of. That was a good example, contemporary. 1 Peter 3:15, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that's in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. And you know, so I was delighted. He not only did it graciously, so he wasn't vitriolic. It was just sort of, it wasn't a question. You just want to get in, get a platform here, and they had to deal with that right there. In short, when we report our research ethically, we join a community in a search for some common good. When we respect sources, persevere and acknowledge data that run against our results, assert claims only as strongly as warranted, acknowledge the limits of our certainty, meet all the other ethical obligations we have as a researcher and a writer, we move beyond gaining a grade or other material goods. We earn the larger benefit that comes from creating an ethical bond with our readers. And I'd add in here, beyond their comments, that we bring honor to Christ and his kingdom. We discover that research focused on the best results of others is also in our best interest. So research and write to the glory of God. My final comment. Next week, what we're going to do is you're going to come, you're going to upload your syllabus or get it done, whatever. And Lee Schwang, I'm going to send you a text here how to, boy, it'd be great if we could talk together and record that, and then I could show that here in class, but you know, we'll have to talk together about about recording, because I hear you present your syllabus, read what you're gonna do. And so you're gonna come in, not read it. I don't want you to read your syllabus, but we're just gonna have you talk through it. This is my problem. This is the topic. This is the question that I'm wanting to answer, and this is the direction I want to go. So we're just going to talk with one another about our different topics, so we get to hear what you're thinking, James, as you're dealing with. And Sean, you're going to come in and talk about which one you're focused on. I forget you had a couple of them there. That's all right, but we'll come in, let you have the platform, and not record it, right? Is that what you'd rather we did? Yep, didn't have the face there, and. Well, maybe then we could record and let you just present from there. Is that what you're talking about?
That's fine.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
He just doesn't want to be on.
Your voice would be all right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And they will at least take about a half hour, and that'll be all of this. And any other questions? Good encouragement for us. Questions anybody have? Got the assignment? Great. Have a good one, gang. Take care.
Everybody pray for time.
Pray for time?
Time.
More time?
More time.
Yes, more time.
please.
25 hours in a day.
Once you grade it, I will start it. Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that-
Sorry, I didn't get it that you said it, and
Is that correct?
I should have had it in my mind to deal with that one first, and I just started from the other one on the stack.